So the way we are delivering our mission right now has to change.
Well, another U-turn on the mini-budget and another Chancellor sacked. But has Liz Truss done enough to keep her own job as Prime Minister?
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on Saturday the 15th of October. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Ellie.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are and whatever you're up to this morning, you can take us with you. These are your top stories.
Former Foreign Secretary and leadership contender Jeremy Hunt has been named Chancellor, the fourth in as many months. Mr Kwarteng was sacked yesterday despite working with the PM on their shared economic vision.
It's a year today since the MP David Amess was stabbed at his constituency surgery in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. We're asking if there's been any improvement to ministers' safety in the last year.
From gentle giant Hagrid to crime psychologist Fitz, actor Robbie Coltrane has died aged 72. We'll be paying tribute to the Scottish actor described by Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling as a complete one-off.
Oh, it's really sad.
So
Cracker
sad.
was such a good show back in the day.
And I watched Harry Potter last night.
Did
in
you?
Tribute, yeah. Chamber of Secrets. It's a great one.
Look, if you want to join in anything we want to talk, you want to talk about today, not what we want to talk about, what you want to talk about, get in touch, please. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now to our top story, and Prime Minister Liz Truss yesterday sacked Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and replaced him with former Minister Jeremy Hunt.
Now, as financial markets remain in turmoil, Truss says she accepts her government's plans for unfunded tax cuts had gone further and faster than investors were expecting.
Admitting she had to change course, the Prime Minister reversed a key policy to scrap the planned rise in corporation tax.
I have acted decisively today because my priority is ensuring our country's economic stability. As Prime Minister, I will always act in the national interest. This is always my first consideration. I want to be honest, this is difficult, but we will get through this storm and we will deliver the strong and sustained growth that can transform the prosperity of our country for generations to come.
Well, look, the founder of Conservatives Against Racism, Albie Amankona, joins us in the studio morning.
Good morning.
Look, a lot of people were saying this is inevitable, perhaps, but it poses some very difficult questions, doesn't it? Because she appears to be doing several things. She's brought in someone who diversifies the cabinet, which you'd see as positive, but she's also done a U-turn on the major policy that was meant to drive growth, which was the whole point of the mini-budget.
Yes, it has been a very difficult week for the Prime Minister, and I think yesterday in particular was probably the peak of those difficulties. I think she's made a good decision in bringing Jeremy Hunt in as the Chancellor, because I would probably say that he is seen by many as a sort of alternative leader of a wing of the Conservative Party, which has been very disgruntled for a very long time. So I think bringing Jeremy Hunt in as Chancellor has the potential to quell the rebels. But the question is, really, is whether or not this government and the Prime Minister can survive until the mid-term fiscal statement on the 31st of October. That is uncertain. I think if the mid-term fiscal statement goes well on the 31st of October, calms the markets, which will in turn bring the cost of borrowing down, which will have an effect on people's mortgages and then get the confidence back of the British people, then she might possibly be able to survive, but that is not a certainty.
Was it right to get rid of Kwasi Kwarteng yesterday? I mean, there was talk of it being a shared economic vision. That's certainly what was said at the mini-budget. Since then, there's been toing and froing between Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss over whose idea that mini-budget was and who that came from. Is he the fall guy?
As a political decision, it was the right decision to make, because ultimately either she went or she found someone else to take the blame. And in this case, the person that she found to take the blame was Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor. But of course, what is also true is that they both believed in those policies. Kwasi Kwarteng was one of the biggest cheerleaders for Liz Truss throughout the leadership contest. They both signed off the budget. They both signed off on the 45p to 40p tax cut, which probably you could argue started this entire debacle. But in terms of a political decision, she found a fall guy. It was Kwasi Kwarteng, so it was the right thing to do.
But the mini-budget is now effectively dead, isn't it? I mean, apart from the winter fuel payment system, which has been seen as being apart from the budget anyway. It's not been part of the commentary, has it, in all of this? And you've got your reduction in the basic rate of income tax. But apart from that, what else is there?
So, of course, there's a national insurance contributions rise, which has been cancelled. For now, but I think that might be difficult to go back on, only because actually Labour supports that policy. So the two policies that are in place in terms of tax, the NICS contribution being cancelled and the corporation tax being brought forward and brought down, actually both Labour and the Conservatives agree on. So I think it's unlikely that we'll see a reversal on those policies, but anything is possible. In terms of the rest of the mini-budget, of course, what we haven't spoken about at all are the other things like the investment zones which are being planned, the reforms on planning, the reforms on regulations for childcare and so on and so forth. Actually, I think those parts of the mini-budget that have got less media coverage expectedly will probably go through, and I think it's time now that we actually start hearing more about those.
Albie, how much of a strong message was it to replace Kwasi Kwarteng with Jeremy Hunt, who is the opposite in so many ways to Kwasi Kwarteng? I mean, he wouldn't share any of Liz Truss's views about economic growth and unfunded tax cuts. Was that intentional by her?
Well, first of all, you're wrong on that. They don't share any of the same views. In fact, during the leadership contest, Jeremy Hunt was running on a platform where he wanted to bring corporation tax down to 12.5%.
But now he's going to have to hike it up to 25%.
So now, obviously, there is going to be a big change from what both of them were planning throughout their leadership contest, from what is actually politically economically viable in terms of the public and in terms of what the markets want to see. And I think we are probably going to see a different style of governing where we have important mechanisms like OBR forecasts built into many budgets and fiscal statements, as we are to see, and so that we actually see things being done properly and executed in a way that the markets will find palatable.
OK. Albie Amankona, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Well, let's get an economic viewpoint on this. We're joined by the Associate Professor of Economics at the University of East Anglia, Sheria Ben-Nouri. Good to see you this morning, Sheria. I mean, do you think any of this will stabilise the markets? Is it going to bring any sense of calm and stability?
I believe so, yes. The mini budget was a bit. It was a very wild policy. Let's put it that way. I mean, it didn't have any of the usual characteristics that we usually have of fiscal discipline. Lots of increased spending and no clear way of funding those. In fact, reducing the revenues, at least in the short term. And so the reversal on these two major points is pretty welcome, and you can kind of see that on the market now. In the markets now, does it go far enough? It's not quite clear because there is an increase in spending that needs to be matched with some sort of revenue raising. At the same time, the huge turmoil that the mini budget threw us in, we seem to be the market seemed to be going a bit past that now.
But I mean, this is the problem, though, isn't it? Even if there is a sort of short-term shoring up of the markets, it's about now the strength of the government, because the government still seems very weak, very shaky in all of this, and of course that is going to upset the markets.
That's right. I mean, that part, one could say, I mean, that steep decline that we saw in the dollar rate, for example, that is the market sort of reacting to it. And the reversal of these is the market sort of rebounding. But you'll notice it doesn't rebound all the way. And the reason for that is because it's sort of built in this additional concern about what's going to happen next. And there is, in fact, a loss of credibility that needs to be regained through showing sort of strong fiscal discipline going forward. And Jeremy Hunt's appointment is, I think, no mistake. I mean, that's sort of a signal that here's somebody who's been around, part of the Conservative Party for 17 years, I believe, has been controversial in the past, but also has been associated with things like fiscal discipline. So there's a hope that he's going to help calm things down even further.
I mean, there is a hope that he is going to help to calm things down further, as you say, but let's not forget the context in which all of this is happening, which is, of course, the cost of living crisis. I mean, how is this going to affect everyday people, this ongoing volatility in the markets?
Well, that's the big difficulty. I mean, that's the reason why we're at this juncture today. I mean, under normal times, when we weren't going through a cost of living crisis, when there wasn't huge inflationary pressure, policies, fiscal policies like cutting taxes and having, with the hope that they impact growth, is a reasonable policy. But during this time of turmoil, it's kind of fueled the flames, and the worry is that it leads to what's called a wage price spiral. So inflation runs out of control. So in the background, the background is important. The context of this is important. And that's why there's other steps that need to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised that when we get to the budget on October 31st, that there will be further scaling back, as it were, to try and calm markets further.
Just briefly, Sharia, how problematic has the Bank of England been in all of this? Because it's come in for a lot of criticism.
Oh, well, it's not necessarily problematic. Is an interesting word. I mean, the Bank of England, to be honest, I would argue, has done the only thing it can really to try and mitigate things as much as it can. So increasing interest rate. I mean, it's not popular because it affects our mortgage rates, and at a time when there's belt tightening across the board, increasing the cost of housing is further belt tightening, and that's uncomfortable. At the same time, that was really the only avenue left to the Bank of England to counter the inflationary spiral. That's a real worry that inflation gets out of control, and the only thing that they could do is to raise interest rates and things. So from my perspective, they've really had no choice. That's the only option that they had on the table, and they executed it, and rightly so.
OK, Sharia Banouri, good to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
The time is 30 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with everything that's going on today. Well, more than 5 million homes could see their annual mortgage payments rise by over £5,000 between now and the end of 2024. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. It says a fifth of that cost reflects predicted interest rate rises since the mini-budget.
The Vincent van Gogh painting at the National Gallery in London is now back on display. Oh, dear me, look how far been targeted by climate activists. The Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflowers in protest against fossil fuels and then glued themselves to the wall. Both have been arrested. The Met said the painting was undamaged as it's behind glass.
22 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey. The Turkish Interior Minister says over 100 miners were working at the site at the time. The cause of the blast, which caused some areas to collapse, is not yet known.
TV and film star Robbie Coltrane has died at the age of 72. He won 3 BAFTAs for playing Fitz in the 1990s in that amazing drama Cracker. He's also, of course, known as Hagrid in the Harry Potter films. Hugh Laurie and the James Bond producers have paid tribute, calling him exceptional.
Now, it's been 1 year since Conservative MP Sir David Amess was killed on the 15th of October 2021. He was stabbed more than 20 times during a constituency surgery.
Well, now, 12 months on, his friends and family are reflecting on his legacy and whether enough has changed to keep MPs safe.
Well, I've been following this case from day one, and I've seen how it's played out from the police investigation to the arrest of Ali Harbi Ali. And for the thoughts and reflections of those closest to Sir David, I spoke to some of his colleagues. It was a brutal killing that shocked the nation, and indeed the world. On the 15th of October 2021, Sir David Amess, the Southend West MP, was stabbed more than 20 times whilst holding a constituency surgery. His death shocked the close-knit community of Southend, where Sir David had been an MP for 24 years. 1 year on from his death, Sir David Amess is being remembered for the man and parliamentarian that he was, but also for the legacy that he leaves behind.
He was quite simply the best bloke I ever knew. And a year on, I have to be honest, I still really miss him.
You know, you don't make a lot of close friends at Westminster. You're naturally very wary. But I can safely say that I never once knew David to betray a confidence.
After Sir David's death, the Home Secretary at the time, Priti Patel, defended the working practices of MPs.
We live in an open society of democracy. We cannot be cowed by any individual or any motivation, people with motives, to stop us from functioning, to serve our elected democracy, but also recognising that there are safety and protection measures that we have to undertake too.
U-turn, this way.
And yet, significant safety concerns remain, as seen as recently as the Conservative Party conference just last week, when MP Michael Fabricant was accosted by a protester.
People must have a right to protest peacefully and democratically, to put their alternative point of view. But that shouldn't mean that people can be spat at or assaulted just for having the temerity to go to a party conference. And I think the police, as much as anyone else, need to learn lessons from that.
But Sir David's closest colleagues remain steadfast that he wouldn't want MPs to become distant from their constituents.
You cannot put some great distance between yourselves and your constituents, and you shouldn't want to, and he wouldn't have wanted that. It would have been the last thing he would have wanted. So I think there are things that could be done, but I don't think you need to be obsessive about it, because MPs must be among the people.
What I think is critically important is how MPs continue to do their surgeries, whether they do them over the phone or via Zoom or in person. We must defend the principle that a constituent that needs help can get hold of their MP one way or another, because that link between an MP and their constituents is absolutely fundamental to the British system. And we cannot allow terrorists or wicked people to break that link, because if we do, then the bad guys are winning. And David would never have wanted that.
Wow. A year ago, it's hard to believe, isn't it? He was, I mean, certainly I'd met him a few times, just one of the very nice people.
Yeah, and I remember being there on the day, actually, when it happened, and people were coming down from the high street. I mean, you couldn't walk through the high street, hundreds of people, and all in tears because they knew him personally. He's one of those MPs, there's not too many of them, who knew the names of everybody in the shops along the high street, and they considered him a friend. So a huge loss to that community, and I'm sure they'll be thinking of him today. And I know that there was a Catholic Mass last night for Sir David Amess, because he was a devout Catholic, and there's an Anglican service today, I believe, as well. Well, so it's going to be
well remembered.
Day.
Well remembered. Just on a sort of slightly lighter note, the Just Stop Oil people.
I do know them, yeah. Well, not personally, but
your friends. Look, I believe. I don't think everything they're saying is wrong. I think there is some merit to some of what they say, and I believe in the right to protest. I do, but throwing tomato soup over a Van Gogh and gluing yourself to the wall. What does that achieve?
Is that the right way to go about it?
Do you know what I'd do?
What would you do?
I wouldn't unglue them, because I presume it's super glue
leave them
or something.
there.
I'd leave them there, at least for 24 hours.
Yeah, let them stew in it a little bit.
Stew in the soup.
Stew in the soup. Well, thank goodness it was in a glass box, because I didn't realise that, and that was really upsetting, wasn't it? I mean, you reacted to that video footage there of the tomato soup being thrown across the sunflowers, but it was in a glass box, thank goodness. So it's only minimal damage on that glass box, but damage is damage, right? Yeah. And is it the right way to go about it? Do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yeah, no, don't send them to prison. Just leave them glued there for a few days.
Let people come and visit. Let them know what they think. Might be good
Throw
to watch,
some
wouldn't
lawsuit on
it?
there.
Oh, no.
I don't know. I've noticed, honestly, it drives me mad. Look, we've got much more to come for you. First, they went on strike. Now, Royal Mail cutting 6,000 jobs. We'll find out more after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today. Most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow, but so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening, and we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade, and actually much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures, but generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off, so most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
6:24 morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Now, Royal Mail has announced plans to cut up to 6,000 jobs by next August, blaming ongoing strike action and rising losses at the business.
Well, the postal company says it will begin notifying workers of its plan, and it fully expects full-year losses this year to hit £350 million.
Well, for more, let's speak to the Communication Workers Union National Officer for Postmasters, Andy Fury. And Andy, we were speaking just last week, weren't we? We were talking about the strike action. I was interviewing you about that and why you're going on strike. And now we have this announcement from Royal Mail that there are going to be 6,000 redundancies. What's your reaction to that?
Well, clearly this is a cynical, calculated and contrived position by Royal Mail, and it's designed to threaten our members. Essentially, it's bullying. And our members are exceptionally angry about it. It hasn't had the desired effect that Royal Mail was looking for. I think they were looking to frighten our members, not to take strike action again in the future. It's actually incensed them, and the feedback we're getting is that it's actually galvanised them to be more determined than ever before.
You're going to do everyone out of a job, aren't you? I mean, Simon Thompson, the CEO, said, "We've announced today losses of £219 million in the first half of the year. Each strike day weakens our financial situation." They can't keep operating like that.
Well, my message to Simon Thompson is that we need to negotiate an agreement. We met with Simon yesterday. We're due to meet with him again on Monday afternoon. The CW is committed to reaching an agreement. We believe that change can be achieved by negotiation. But the reality is, Royal Mail declared record profits only in May this year, and in January paid out £400 million to shareholders, and Simon Thompson's awarded himself some many millions in bonuses and such like shares. So look, this is a successful company. It has some problems, but there's problems that we can address through negotiation.
How do you think those talks and those negotiations are going to go now that we had this announcement of 6,000 redundancies? Could we see the strike action continue? Are you hoping to seek a resolution?
Well, our aim is to reach an agreement first and foremost, but if we can't do that, then the programme of strikes that we've announced throughout October and November will continue. Something like 15 strikes are due to take place. And we will consider further action in the lead up to Christmas as well. I mean, my message to the Royal Mail is to come to the bargaining table and negotiate a fair and reasonable agreement.
You're in a difficult position, though, aren't you, compared to any action that may have been taken even just a few years ago, because there are so many more services now available. I mean, how much is bought on Amazon and how much of it is delivered by Royal Mail? Not a great percentage, right? You're in a weaker position than you've ever been when there is such strong competition.
Well, I don't see it that way. I mean, first and foremost, the public think that the Postal Service is magnificent. Our members as key workers delivered throughout the whole of the pandemic, kept the country connected, and we delivered 6 days a week to 32 million addresses for one single price, the universal service obligation. Royal Mail has a unique offer, and it needs to be leveraging that unique offer and developing new products and services and new growth. And the CWU has vision and an agenda to want to build Royal Mail, not see it wither on the vine. Unfortunately, Simon Thompson, the board, appear to be wanting to see it wither on the vine.
I mean, the timing of these strikes is significant as well, isn't it? Because it is the run-up to Christmas. And for businesses that are relying on your postal service, and like you say, you have got really loyal customers who've been with you for so many years. But as Stephen says, there's a gig economy now that is flourishing, that is often cheaper than Royal Mail as well. And do you fear that you're going to lose those loyal supporters of Royal Mail posties and they'll go elsewhere?
Look, we would encourage small businesses, ordinary customers to lobby Royal Mail and urge them to behave responsibly. The CW wants to reach an agreement. We want to reach an agreement on pay and change moving forward. The reality is, though, Simon Thompson and his board want to turn Royal Mail into a gig economy employer, and we can't accept that under any circumstances.
So, what are you asking for in all of this?
We're asking first and foremost for our members to be treated with dignity and respect.
Which means what?
The company's imposed a 2% pay award. We believe our members deserve significantly more than that. They can afford it. There's no doubt about that.
How much?
Well, I'm not going to reveal our negotiating stance.
Why not? Why not? In a way, I mean, because a lot of the other people who are striking at the moment said we want to pay rise in line with inflation or whatever. whatever it may be. I mean, why do it all in secret?
Well, negotiations, both parties would have to negotiate in good faith. We would anticipate trying to reach an agreement that covered this year and next year as well. The pay review date is April. We've got a rise in inflation. Our members are not overpaid and they're certainly not greedy people. They want to provide a decent service for the community, but they need to be rewarded fairly and equitably, and at the moment they're not being so.
What do you say to people who say that, you know, in those post bags of the postal workers that you represent at your union, there is important documents, there are passports, there are medications, I mean, really important items that are needed by people often next day. And on these strike days, of which there are several, there will be a disrupted service the day before, a disrupted service the day after, and on the day of the strike. I mean, is that responsible?
Well, it's the only option that we've got. When we're faced with an obdurate employer that simply wants to bully our members into submission, then the only recourse we've got is to ballot our members for strike action. We held 2 ballots during the summer. We got 98% yes votes in both of them on massive turnouts. The figures were any MP would eat their heart out to get figures like that.
What turnouts did you get?
Well, we got nearly 80% turnouts on both of them, and look, we're talking about 115,000 workers here. So we've got massive mandates here. Royal Mail know this, and Royal Mail have had the ability to get round the bargaining table and thrash out a deal. Now, hopefully, when we meet Simon Thompson, the CEO, on Monday, he will wake up, smell the coffee and realise the way forward to avoid the disruption you talk about is to actually reach an agreement with the CWU.
OK. Andy Fury, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. What do you think about all of this? GBViews at gbnews.uk. I have to say, there's nothing more frustrating. I don't have a letterbox, so I go out to a little box thing. And
that is frustrating. I'd be frustrated with that alone.
It's frustrating when you go out in the rain and there's no post.
Oh, no.
And you're like, I've been waiting for a new driving licence.
This is what I'm saying. It's the important documents. But this is. I did a story earlier this week with a postal brownie company, and she loves her postie, and so she supports the strikes. But at the same time, run up to Christmas, it's her busiest time of year, and it's fresh brownies with fresh eggs and butter and cream and all the rest. And she can't risk it. She might have to go elsewhere. So this is it, isn't it? It's a very difficult one.
Yeah, yeah.
Largest strike action of any sector. Is that right, Andy? Yes, that's what they're saying at the Communication Workers Union. Let us know what you think about that. Do you support the strike action? GBViews at gbnews.uk.
It's interesting. I think probably more people will support this than anything else, but that's because you tend to know your postie.
It's a community thing, isn't it?
It's a real community sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Jess said. She said, we have a chat every morning and he helps me get everything into the bags and, you know, they're very, very much part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
So, very interesting.
Anyway, look, don't go anywhere. We've got all the news and views making the headlines in this morning's newspapers for you in just a couple of minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. You are watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. The time has just gone 6:35. Thanks for your company.
Oh,
Keep going. She keeps going.
Good, isn't she? She doesn't stop when she winds you up and off you go.
I do, yeah. Off I go. Look, it's nice and early as well. I've had my coffee. Ready to go.
She's a lot of fun to work with. Let's have a look at the newspapers today, and guess what? They're dominated by one story. Truss fights for survival, says The Times.
Guardian says a day of chaos as Truss performs yet another U-turn.
The Mail asks how much more can she and the rest of us take?
Significant from the Mail, that one, I think. I don't know who's this from. Roll up a bit just so I can see.
So
Telegraph. There you go. He's rolling down too quickly on the autocue. Telegraph says Truss clings to power after axing Chancellor Kwarteng.
The Mirror says time's up as the Chancellor is fired.
And The Sun pays tribute to actor Robbie Coltrane, known for playing Hagrid in Harry Potter, who's died at the age of 72.
I feel sorry about that. 72's no age either. Let's go through the papers now this morning with political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield, and author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. Good to see you both this morning. I guess we better start with the Prime Minister. Kevin, what's the Mirror saying?
Yeah, quite simply, they're saying time's up. I think the story now moves on to whether and how long Liz Truss can survive. They're rightly saying that Tory MPs are plotting now, quite openly almost, to bring her down. And I think the only thing stopping it is there's no straightforward way of getting rid of her. I think it would be a bit like the Boris Johnson demise in that the Cabinet or Graham Brady, the chair of the 1922 committee, would need to go to her and say, look, you've completely lost the confidence of the MPs. You're going to have to go.
She's not going to listen to Graham, is she?
Well, not when she's only been Prime Minister for 6 weeks, less than 6 weeks, actually. You know, so it's utterly humiliating to have to give up so soon. So she's going to try and style it out, really, but it's going to be very difficult. I mean, after yesterday, she actually made things worse with the press conference.
I was going to ask you about that, the press conference.
I think so. I mean, from the MPs I've spoken to, I think they were looking for her to project a bit of leadership, confidence, but, you know, only taking 4 questions, I think it just made her look quite weak, not sure of her position.
Sorry, Ellie, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, what do you think that was then? Because you're right. I mean, I think it was less than 9 minutes at that press conference last night. As you say, she took 4 questions, didn't take the questions from the floor. And at a time when morale is that low in the Conservative Party, is what we're hearing, you would think that's the time for her to want to stand up and steady the ship, and she didn't do that. Why do you think?
Well, she was already on the back foot from Wednesday night. That was the meeting of the 1922 committee, and she appeared before them. And, you know, from MPs I've spoken to, it was a bit of a car crash, really. You know, she wasn't impressive. They said she was wooden. And we saw that for ourselves on the TV yesterday. You know, I just don't think she came across as a strong leader, as a good Prime Minister. And, you know, image matters. Leaving the policies to one side, I mean, that's been bad enough. But just being able to project a little bit of control, a bit of leadership, she just failed to do it.
But wasn't she doing that by saying, look, I've got rid of the Chancellor, my closest ally and closest friend in Parliament, and I've made a massive U-turn on the tax issue, which was the one area that was meant to spark growth. I mean, she's effectively ripped up the mini-budget.
Oh, she has.
In one foul swoop.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that showing... I mean, it's a U-turn, but isn't it leadership saying, well, I'm going to have to take action here?
Well, you could... I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but obviously this is the second big U-turn from the mini-budget. There's a 45p. And also, I don't think it helped as well that she gave the same answer to every question. She didn't actually engage with the questions she was... I mean, they were tough questions, you know, why are you still here, basically? And she just did not engage at all, try to, you know, put forward her case for staying in the post. And as I say, MPs were describing it to me as dire, dreadful, and you just feel that there's now a head of steam building that will ultimately bring her down.
The Express, Nikki, talks about the vultures circling, doesn't it?
Well, it's so funny because I was only here 2 weeks ago and I said, I was reporting on something and it said there's a chance that she might be gone by November, and we all went, November? But actually it's looking more likely that might happen. So, yeah, I mean, it's really about the Conservative Party sacrificing her to save themselves, isn't it, at this stage?
But it wouldn't save them, would it?
Well,
that's the
Well,
thing,
this is the issue. They're between a rock and a hard place because they stagger on with Truss, who hasn't got the confidence either of MPs or the country, or they put somebody else in and then, probably, they're just going to lose the election because there's so much chaos. But there's the suggestion that Rishi Sunak with Penny Mordaunt could make a comeback, this kind of dream team of the candidates that didn't get through in the first place, because Rishi is seen as a safe pair of hands with the economy.
See, interesting, someone very senior yesterday said to me, that's nonsense.
Oh, excellent. Well, maybe it is. It's just what everybody's reporting.
It's what everyone's reporting.
Yeah.
I was told it was nonsense.
I think that it's certainly not open and shut. It sounds on paper, yeah, great, Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, you could see it working, but there's so many hurdles. I mean, does Rishi Sunak even want it? Really, after a bruising summer leadership contest, rejected by the members. That was only a few weeks ago. I mean, can he really be bothered with the hassle?
Well,
it's not like he needs it.
There's also a suggestion here that Jeremy Hunt might try and stab her in the back. Because he has... didn't he run for leader twice already?
Yeah. Has he manoeuvred himself in for that reason?
That's the suggestion that could be, she thinks she's, playing a strong hand by putting somebody in who's got lots of policy experience, but actually it could, again, be to her detriment.
Well, look, let's work on the basis then that there's a very real chance that she may go within say before Christmas, right? Because whether you like that or not, that's a possibility now. You can't they can't do the leadership thing again, can they? Even if it's a coronation, without... the calls from the Labour Party and, frankly, probably most of the people in the country is going to be, you need to have a general election.
Yeah.
Well, that's Turkey's voting for Christmas.
The appetite for that, an election before Christmas, it's just at this stage in the proceedings, I think the voter turnout would be extremely low if that happened.
One MP did say to me, though, that at the moment, looking at the opinion polls, the difference between keeping Liz Truss and getting rid of her could be having 50 MPs after the next election for the Tories, or 200. Yeah. That's how desperate... I think that's an exaggeration myself, but that's basically where a lot of Conservative MPs' minds are right now. It's like going into an election with Liz Truss is unthinkable, they think. Replacing her with anyone is surely going to be better than going into the election in the current situation that they find themselves in. So that's why they're just... they're
in turmoil.
In complete turmoil.
I know there'll be a lot of people watching and listening, emailing and saying, give her a chance, leave her alone, let her get on with it, all this. I think it's a perfectly valid opinion. I think there are a lot of people, and even people like us who've dealt with this business for a very, very long time. I was at home last night thinking, I can't get my head around this. I can't work out quite how we are in such utter chaos here.
I think it's the fact that it's happened so quickly. A lot of people, no fans of Liz Truss, said, she'll be a disaster. But no one, even her biggest critic, would have thought that we'd be here after 6 weeks.
There hasn't been a quiet day, has there? No. This is what The Guardian's saying. It was a day of chaos yesterday. And the question will be now, Jeremy Hunt, is that enough to steady the ship for now?
He's very unpopular with a lot of voters.
But popular in the party, isn't he?
But popular in the party. But again, popular in the party might mean that the party decides, well, he'd be a better leader. So I guess we have to wait and see.
Although he was rejected by the party only 3 years ago in favour of Boris Johnson and didn't even make it onto the second round of voting with the MPs in the summer there. So what I thought was interesting was one of his close allies, Steve Bryan, former minister, was doing the rounds last night on the broadcasters, and he said it twice, so it obviously wasn't a slip of the tongue. He said, if you think about it this way, going forward, Liz Truss is the chairman and Jeremy Hunt is the chief executive, which is obviously, if he's close to it, that's undermining
very much
Liz Truss right from day one. So, I just think that something's going to have to give one
where does it leave other ministers? We had Greg Hands on the show yesterday, who's only just been reappointed.
Yeah.
Right? He spent the entire interview saying, there will be no U-turn, the Chancellor is not going. And I just thought, well, he's been made to look extremely stupid.
Yes.
Hasn't he, within the space of about 6 hours, 5 hours from that interview?
Oh, yeah, and he was a Rishi Sunak supporter, and he was brought in just a couple of weeks ago, and it was seen as an olive branch to that wing of the party, because obviously when she first took over the job, she made sure that basically anyone that hadn't supported her was cast to the wilderness, which was one of the main criticisms against her. So then you bring in Greg Hands, and he's made to look a fool yesterday, going out there defending, saying there'll be no more U-turns, Kwarteng, great Chancellor, he's safe as houses, and then a few years later he's sacked. You know, if you're Greg Hands, you're thinking, why do I need this hassle, you know? So he doesn't owe her anything now.
Well, the whole thing just smacks of desperation, and it's like you said, Kevin, about the appearance yesterday. It was so paltry. And you thought that maybe she'd step up, maybe be a bit more human, a bit more contrite, which is what you would imagine Boris Johnson would have done, for example. But she just doesn't seem to have it. And, you know, that would at least keep her, you know, protected with voters if she was personable in that way. So she's kind of losing on both sides.
Interesting. Look, can we have a look? Change tack slightly. Oh, actually, Nikki, can we look at this? Because I want to cover in the Star, Robbie Coltrane.
Yes.
Because, I mean, there's a whole generation know him as Hagrid, in which he was superb in Harry Potter. I remember him more fondly as Cracker.
Me too.
Because that was an amazing show.
Yeah.
And I can't believe he's passed away at such a young age.
I know. So, like you said, 72 is no age. It's so sad. I think what's been really lovely about all the tributes that have been pouring in is how much they stress his intelligence and his kindness and just how nice he was to work with. Because actually, lots of people have massive egos in drama and acting, and apparently he just didn't. He was very generous with his knowledge and his talent. And yeah, I remember him from Cracker. It's kind of like a very strong memory of my childhood, watching him on ITV, kind of in these very bleak landscapes, smoking a cigarette, figuring out how he's going to crack the next crime.
Yeah.
I do think it's a bit frustrating how if somebody has been in Harry Potter, they are always then known as the Harry Potter actor, because he had such a wide repertoire. He could do any kind of acting as well. But yeah, it's just very sad, but very lovely what people are saying about him too.
I think as well, it's the power of you know, the influence that he had on so many people's childhoods. I mean, I grew up with Harry Potter. I used to come out near my birthday every single year, and we'd all go to the cinema and watch it. And I grew up with him, and I think that's what the actor who plays, I'm doing it now, Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton, I think his name is. He was saying it's millions of children that love him. I mean, it's the most incredible legacy, really. And there is this clip that's going viral at the moment of Robbie speaking a few years ago saying, look, there will be children in 20 years' time watching the Harry Potter films. I won't be here, but Hagrid will. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I haven't...
Legacy.
I haven't told my kids yet that he's died, no, because I just thought Friday night, it's not... a nice way to end the week, you know. But yeah, they'll be really upset because
we're going through
big fans of big fans of Harry Potter, and that's how they will remember him. But you're right, his repertoire actually was huge, a fantastic actor, and I think it's come as a shock because it came from left field. Really, no one knew if he was ill. I don't even know if he was ill. You know, it just seems to have just been a complete shock.
Yeah, that hasn't been said yet, has it?
Yeah, so, it was just one of those, when you saw the news, it stopped you in your tracks.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be slightly weird for people who go to the Harry Potter studio thing. Because, I don't know if you've been, but when he's walking about in the films as a giant, it's actually a very, very tall man with a Hagrid animatronic head on.
Oh wow!
Which is it is Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah.
But this head that moves, the eyes, the lips, the face, everything moves. So some of the shots you actually see in the film aren't him at all.
Yeah.
It's a robot.
Oh wow!
And it's the most amazing thing. So that head is there.
Yeah.
And it's quite remarkable to see. It's going to be even more poignant to see it now.
I think didn't J.K. Rowling say as well that as she wrote the character, she had Robbie Coltrane in mind.
Fascinating.
You know, because obviously he was a big man in lots of ways. You know, a huge personality. And just, Nicky made the point that there's no one's got a bad word to say about him. You know, he obviously was a really, really genuinely nice fella, so it's incredibly sad.
Yeah, and like you say, Nicky, I think the children in the Harry Potter series were saying he was like a fun uncle, and he really looked after them on set. So, no, it's really lovely tributes that are coming out today.
We should all raise a glass to him tonight, I think wouldn't be a bad thing. And it would help the pubs out as well, going to the FT.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just getting back to politics, you know, we talk about at Westminster, we get obsessed about personalities and who's up, who's down, but, you know, the real world consequences of the rising energy prices, rising interest rates is really being felt by the hospitality industry, and FT's got a really interesting feature here, speaking to restaurateurs, pub owners, just about the difficulties that they are facing. They've just about survived the pandemic, and they thought that things were on the up, and now they're being hammered by, say, energy prices and rising interest rates. So it's just interesting, what they're talking about, someone having to dip into their own savings, obviously cutting back on staff, which knocks onto the economy as well, less people with money to spend, and it just becomes a vicious circle. So yeah, it's a pretty bleak feature, but I think it's important, that people realise that, if you do have the spare money, to go out there and support your local pub, because once these establishments go, in a lot of communities, that is the hub of the community. Once they go, it's very difficult for them to come back.
Yeah.
And it's almost the unseen consequence of the economic turmoil.
It's so, like you say, it's a sector that was already on its knees, wasn't it? Coming out of the pandemic.
Well, it has been for a long time.
Yeah.
It's really, really...
Even pre-pandemic, yeah, exactly.
There's a cheap booze in the pubs and all the rest of it that's had the British Beer and Pub Association up in arms for years now. How about you like popping to the pub, don't you, Nicky?
Well, yeah, I'm pregnant at the minute, but I do still go in there and have something non-alcoholic. My husband actually works in hospitality and was a bar owner and then sold his business very luckily after the pandemic. But it's just never ending. It felt very much during the pandemic that hospitality were the last people to receive help. And, that, if you think right back to the beginning of the pandemic, before we had lockdown, and Boris left the pubs hanging on that Friday night and everybody was just kind of hemorrhaging cash, thinking, we're all going to go bust. We had that. We thought we were going to lose everything. And, the fact that they've rebuilt and then, again, they're facing, oh, no, this avalanche of problems. People that work in the industry are, they are so determined. They have so much grit. So, if you like the pub, go. And also, they have a much better selection of non-alcoholic drinks now, as I'm finding out. So, non-alcoholic beers and all the rest of it. So, you don't need to be a drinker to have a good time there. Basically.
Yeah, but it's like you say, though, it's like pulling things out of a hat. I mean, I was in a restaurant a few weeks ago doing a story about this, and it was actually when the pound fell that Thursday, I think it was. I went to speak to a Spanish restaurant which imports most of their food, obviously most of their wine, most of their meat, and they buy it in dollars. So he was making massive losses on the food. And he was saying the energy bills to heat the restaurant are massive. Cost of oil, which is and wheat, which is Ukraine crisis. I mean, he just said it's the perfect storm. I mean, and it's always pulling something out of a hat to get people through the door, get people coming in and spending money. It's a massive challenge.
It is a challenge. If you want to go and support your pub tonight,
or your local restaurant.
Let us know where you're going, where you're heading to, where you live. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Look, Nicky, Kevin, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. Now, the nights are drawing in and we are just days away from the clocks going back, and this year our winter skies could become darker than ever as councils across the country try to save energy by switching off the lights.
And with less light pollution, there's a better chance of seeing the stars and planets above us. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody has been to Exmoor, where the dark skies are viewed as a precious and increasingly rare resource.
A pint of lager and a glimpse of outer space, please. Alan Boddington is the landlord of the Poltimore Inn in North Malton. To get his business through the winter months, he's built an observatory where adults and youngsters alike can grab a drink and look up at the stars.
Oh, amazing. I was blown away, to be perfectly honest. The kids loved it. They were so full of enthusiasm and you could see the enjoyment. It's some of the best money I've invested.
He's invested in an observatory in the pub garden. Complete with retractable roof, punters can sip their pints in awe at the heavens. But it's not just Alan. Exmoor is full of opportunities to look up at the night sky. Dan James from Exmoor National Park explains why.
Exmoor has got some of the darkest skies in the country. Just over 10 years ago in 2011 we were designated the very first dark sky reserve in all of Europe, and that's all about engaging people with the dark skies, keeping them dark as a precious and an increasingly rare resource, and helping people to enjoy them.
Exmoor Dark Sky Festival begins today. Events include stargazing, workshops and even a poetry competition.
over the years, obviously we're a populated island and we've been developing, and the place has got brighter and brighter, and that's why places like Exmoor are increasingly rare, and even places like Exmoor as a dark sky reserve are still under threat. So the more we can turn off the lights, the better. And you know, it's not about saying no lighting by any means, but it's about saying the right light in the right place at the right time.
Jeff Moody, GB News.
I think if you can get to a dark sky spot and get it all wrapped up and warm and cosy, now's the sort of time of year to do it. It's a beautiful thing. To the things you will see that
I
you
feel like
just
we
never
need
thought.
that, don't we, at the moment? Bit of
Yeah.
stargazing, bit of chill.
Bit of nature.
Bit of nature. Get
Forgetting about the realising how small and insignificant we actually are, and it's sometimes quite good for the mind.
It might be
I think.
helpful at these times.
I think so.
During these times.
Plus, nothing else. It's a cheap night out. All you need is like a flask of soup or something.
Not a bad idea, actually.
It's not a bad idea, no.
Get up to that this weekend.
Well, I'll be... No, well, you're here, aren't you?
Well, yeah. Maybe
So-
van's better tomorrow. I can
Your
head
van's
off.
better tonight. You'll be out in the razzle-dazzle tonight,
Yeah,
won't you?
well, yeah, that's not a lie.
But we shall see how she's getting on. I know she's watching now. Good morning. She's sat up in
Good
bed.
morning, Anne. I
She's
hope
sat
you're
up in
feeling
bed with
better.
some hot soup.
Oh.
So there she was. She was a bit under the weather yesterday, so it's just caught up with her. There's a lot doing the rounds at the minute, so stay on top of things. And if you're due a flu jab, my advice is get it done. Interesting one about those protesters who threw soup at the Van Gogh sunflowers. Clive says the ironic thing about the Stop Oil protesters gluing themselves to stuff is the glue they use is made from oil. Well, there you go. That's irony for you.
That
Keep
is
your thoughts
irony.
coming through. GBviews at gbnews.uk. And we've got all the headlines coming up for you after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today. Most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow, but so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening, and we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade, and actually much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures, but generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off, so most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
The way we are delivering our mission right now has to change.
Another U-turn on the mini-budget and another Chancellor sacked. But has Liz Truss done enough to keep her own job as PM?
Morning to you. It's 7 o'clock. It's Saturday, the 15th of October, and this is Breakfast on GB News today with Stephen and Ellie.
Very close to you. Move over here. We're live across the whole of the UK on both your TV and your radio. Wherever you are, you can take us with you. Here are your top stories this morning.
Well, the former Foreign Secretary and leadership contender Jeremy Hunt is the new Chancellor. Mr Kwarteng was sacked yesterday despite working with the Prime Minister on their shared economic vision.
It's been 1 year since the MP David Amess was stabbed at his constituency surgery in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. We're asking if there's been any improvement to Minister's safety since his death.
From gentle giant Hagrid to crime psychologist Fitz, the actor Robbie Coltrane has died at the age of 72. We'll be paying tribute to the actor, described by J.K. Rowling as a complete one-off.
And as ever, you can join in on any of our discussions this morning by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Well, let's crack straight on with our main news this morning, should we? Because it's, I hate to say it, but really political chaos right now. The Prime Minister yesterday sacked the Chancellor and replaced him with the former Foreign Secretary and former Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt.
Well, as financial markets remain in turmoil, Liz Truss says she accepts her government's plans for unfunded tax cuts has gone further and faster than investors were expecting.
Now, admitting she had to change course, the Prime Minister maintained her commitment towards an economic plan for growth.
I have acted decisively today because my priority is ensuring our country's economic stability. As Prime Minister, I will always act in the national interest. This is always my first consideration. I want to be honest, this is difficult, but we will get through this storm and we will deliver the strong and sustained growth that can transform the prosperity of our country for generations to come.
Well, let's talk to Nigel Nelson, political editor at the Sunday Mirror, who joins us now. Nigel, good to see you this morning. You know what, I really hate to kick people when they're down. I do. But unfortunately, that performance from the Prime Minister last night, I mean, despite the massive changes she was announcing, the shock changes really to a lot of people, just didn't seem to make enough of a difference. She didn't seem to be leading enough somehow.
No, the whole thing just didn't work. That the press conference was only 8 minutes long. She only took 4 questions, and she started off picking newspapers that she hoped would be sympathetic to her for the questions. They weren't. They basically asked her, when is she going to resign? When is she going to go? And after 8 minutes, she sort of scuttled off and called a halt to it. That didn't impress MPs very much, who who are pretty unimpressed anyway. And even the markets didn't react favourably. So the gilt market is still in some turmoil. The pound fell as she was speaking. Everything really now depends on what the markets do when they reopen on Monday morning.
And Nigel, how do you think Conservative MPs are feeling now, especially after that performance from Liz Truss yesterday?
Well, I think that they are both angry, they're in despair, they are hugely disappointed. We know that letters of no confidence are going in. Now, under the Tory rules, she can't be challenged for another year, although, of course, they could change the rules. So I think the feeling in the House of Commons all week has been that she's got to go, and the question is the manner of her departure. Now, what could happen this coming week is the so-called men in grey suits, and that's Graham Brady, who is the backbench shop steward and his 1922 committee executive, could go to her and say, look, your time's up, please quit now before you do any more damage. The problem there, of course, is that she doesn't have to. If she digs her heels in, then she would have to be removed, and that becomes a more complex process.
Yeah, she has tried to pacify people with what she said last night, hasn't she? She's tried to pacify the markets by doing this huge U-turn on the main part of her growth mini budget, if you like, on the corporation tax issue. She's tried to pacify members of her own party by bringing on board, the number 2 position, Jeremy Hunt, someone with whom she does not see eye to eye. Why are those measures not working?
Well, I mean, the problem I think she's got is a genuine dilemma in that if she does what is financially right, it's politically wrong, and works the other way round. If she does what's politically right, it's financially wrong. She can't please everybody. So, yes, I think that it goes a little way to actually calming the markets, that deciding to go ahead with the increase in corporation tax means she has another £18 billion to spare, but there's still a £25 billion black hole in that mini budget which caused all the problems in the first place. So she's got to find a way of actually dealing with that. Now, even if she gets through the next couple of weeks, we then have the next financial statement that now Jeremy Hunt will be delivering rather than Kwarteng. And he faces the same problems, that this will come with the Office of Budget Responsibility report. But by all accounts, that is not going to give her the growth targets that she is after. Liz Truss reckons that she can get to 2.5% growth. Most economists say that is really unlikely. And even the International Monetary Fund turned around and said, look, their predictions are she's a full percentage point away from that. So all these various problems are building up. And the question now is when Tory MPs move against her, not if.
So on that basis, Nigel, put your money where your mouth is. When will she go, do you think? There'll be a lot of people watching and listening don't like this conversation. But when will she go, do you think? And as a result of that, when do you think we will see a general election?
Well, that's the other problem, because it's very difficult to actually change Prime Minister yet again and not have a general election. The when she will go routine could be as early as this coming week. That's if she went quietly. Now, if she doesn't go quietly, then it means that the MPs have to find a way of bypassing their 172,000 members. They don't want them to get a vote again. That means either changing the rules or getting some kind of consensus amongst MPs about who should succeed Liz Truss. That in itself is difficult. The idea at the moment is you'd end up with just one candidate, but that would mean more than half Tory MPs agreeing on who that one candidate is. And the Tory party is really nowadays sort of a loose alliance of warring tribes rather than a united political party. So it'd be difficult. So the straight answer to your question, Stephen, is it could be this coming week. She may have a few weeks more while they get their ducks in a row, but either way, I think she'll be gone by Christmas.
And Nigel, all of this is playing into the Labour Party's hands, isn't it? I mean, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, no surprise, called for a general election. He says that this government is at the end of the road. And you're right. I mean, the public perception is that the Conservative Party is a mess. Like you say, it's warring tribes.
Yes, I think that's right. And the most important thing is that the greatest strength of the Conservative Party has always been their economic management, their competence in running financial matters. And that's been completely shot to pieces. And so MPs are thinking now, if there is an election, they may get virtually wiped out. The question really for them is it better to try and hold on to a few of their seats and start again, do a couple of years in opposition, say, or do they try and stave off another general election? But you've seen from GBNews polls that the kind of lead that Labour has got means that Tories end up as just a rump in Parliament if there is an election. So it becomes very difficult. But equally, the public are saying, look, we've had enough. This is chaos. We need a different government. The Tories can hope that by having a new Prime Minister, that government will look different enough.
So it's about, I mean, heck, again, I'm very conscious of the fact there will be a lot of viewers and listeners who really just do not like this conversation. But it's about mitigating. If you're going to look at it strategically from the Tory party perspective, it's about mitigating the losses when it comes to a general election. And it seems almost, I would have laughed at the idea just a couple of weeks ago when people say, oh, it's time to bring back Boris. He could almost come in as sort of an interim, couldn't he? Come in, do 18 months and try to mitigate the losses come the next election.
Well, you're absolutely right, Stephen. Even that is being talked about, the idea that there may be a way of bringing Boris Johnson back into number 10. MPs feel that that's going to be a bit tricky, that while some of them think, oh, I wish we'd actually not got rid of him in the first place, the idea of actually bringing him back now for all the reasons he left probably won't help things. They're more likely to turn to somebody else. And the general feeling seems to be that the mistake was not getting Rishi Sunak. So at the moment, the kind of plots that are going on are either to make Rishi Sunak the next Prime Minister, or alternatively to find a new Prime Minister and try and persuade Rishi Sunak to go back to the Treasury as Chancellor in the hope that he could actually calm the markets. After all, he was the one who predicted all these things would happen if Liz Truss carried out her economic policies.
Nigel, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I hope we get to chat a lot more over the coming days. Thank you. Would love your thoughts on that. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Whatever your perspective. And it's interesting, some of you will get in touch with very sort of personal views, because a lot of you do, saying it's got to be about this person or that person or the other person. Some of you get in touch with a wider perspective, which is what, to be honest, what we try to achieve here is bringing you the wider perspective so that we can then all ponder what we think is the right thing to do throughout the next few hours. It's hugely difficult to know what could be done to either save the Conservative government, save Liz Truss, or try and, as we were saying there, mitigate the losses they will face at the next election. Is a Labour government inevitable, in your view, or not? Everything's up in the air at the moment.
And anything's on the table, it seems, at the moment, isn't it? Really, really difficult time. Do get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, and we will try and share as many of them as we can on the programme this morning.
We will. It is 12 minutes past 7. Let's bring you up to date with some of the other headlines, should we? More than 5 million homes could see their annual mortgage payments rise by more than £5,000 between now and 2024. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. It says a fifth of that cost reflects predicted interest rate rises since the mini-budget.
The Vincent van Gogh painting at the National Gallery in London is now back on display after being targeted by climate activists. Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflower's portrait in protest against fossil fuels, and then glued themselves to the wall. The Met Police says the painting was undamaged as it's behind glass.
22 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey. The Turkish Interior Minister Interior Minister says more than 100 miners were working at the time. The cause of the blast, which caused some areas to collapse, is not yet known. We were talking, weren't we, in the last hour to a member of the CW, the Communication Workers Union, about the Royal Mail strikes, because Royal Mail said, well, we're going to have to get rid of 6,000 workers now because the strikes have damaged our business. They think that's a bit of a ransom.
They do, yes, because it's the largest strike action of any sector so far this year. They say 115,000 posties are out on strike at the moment. Loads of you have been in contact with us after that discussion. Michael says, good morning to you, Michael. No, I don't support strikes. I'm not satisfied with your terms and conditions. If you're not satisfied with your terms and conditions, change your job, he says. Yeah, I'm afraid if you're watching and you're a postie, there's not a lot of support yet, though it may come through this morning. Graham says the days of the postie are numbered. There's like a lot of businesses, milkmen, breadmen, attitudes and times have changed. The union leaders are living in the past and need to wake up to modernisation. Mike says for years, unions have dictated to businesses and held them to ransom. They destroy businesses and destroy their members' employment security. Time they were banned, says Mike. But Jeff says it's time for the whole country to go on strike because this government and capitalism is not fit for purpose. The working class have been taken for granted. Can you imagine if there's a general strike? Oh, let's not go back to those days, That is the last thing we need, isn't it?
That would be awful.
And Michael says, we did put this to Andy Fury, who is from the Communication Workers Union. He says, people get medication delivered through the post, which could be life-saving. Unions act irresponsibly, especially the RMT, he says. And that is a point, isn't it? That, of course, in the post are important documents, passports, and also medications. So, strike action, I think that's something like 20 days, 21 days. Between now and December, it's a lot of days of unrest, isn't it? And people not getting their parcels.
We're going to notice it with Christmas approaching, that's for sure. Get in touch with your thoughts if you would. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Also, if you want to talk about anything which is slightly more jolly...
Oh, please, tell me.
Do you know, I'm driven by soup this morning.
You do like soup?
I'm soup, partly because they're throwing it at pictures in the National Gallery, and it has upset me. Waste of good soup. And also because I know Anne, recovering this morning, is warming herself through with a cup of leek and potato soup this morning that she made herself. She sent me a little WhatsApp. So, favourite soups, and do you make them yourself?
Oh, yeah, and I've got an answer for you.
Have you?
Yeah, Irish vegetable.
Really?
It sounds boring, stunning, absolutely stunning.
Do you make it yourself?
Nice, thick, yeah.
Oh.
I'll get you the recipe. Wonderful.
Well,
I just knock it up
bring some in.
Oh, I need to make it for you, do I? Do an Aidan McGee. He came in, didn't he? I was watching that.
Yes,
the chestnut soup or something.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, I had FOMO.
Did you?
Missing out that day.
Oh, you did miss out. It was delicious.
Yeah. So, yeah, do let us know. That'll be nice.
Yeah, something to cheer us up.
Make us hungry this morning. Tell us about your favourite soups, recipes on a postcard.
Now, to serious matters, and it's scary sometimes how time flies by. It has been 1 year today since the Conservative MP, and actually, frankly, an incredibly nice man, Sir David Amess, was stabbed to death after he was stabbed actually more than 20 times during a constituency surgery.
Yes, and 12 months on, his friends and family are reflecting on his legacy and whether enough has changed to keep MPs safe. Well, I've been following this case from day one, and I've seen how it's played out, from the police investigation to the arrest of Ali Harbi Ali. And for the thoughts and reflections of those closest to Sir David, I spoke to some of his colleagues. It was a brutal killing that shocked the nation, and indeed the world. On the 15th of October 2021, Sir David Amess, the Southend West MP, was stabbed more than 20 times whilst holding a constituency surgery. His death shocked the close-knit community of Southend, where Sir David had been an MP for 24 years. 1 year on from his death, Sir David Amess is being remembered for the man and parliamentarian that he was, but also for the legacy that he leaves behind.
He was quite simply the best bloke I ever knew. And a year on, I have to be honest, I still really miss him.
You know, you don't make a lot of close friends at Westminster. You're naturally very wary. But I can safely say that I never once knew David to betray a confidence.
After Sir David's death, the Home Secretary at the time, Priti Patel, defended the working practices of MPs.
We live in an open society of democracy. We cannot be cowed by any individual or any motivation, people with motives, to stop us from functioning, to serve our elected democracy, but also recognising that there are safety and protection measures that we have to undertake too.
U-turn, this way.
And yet, significant safety concerns remain, as seen as recently as the Conservative Party conference just last week, when MP Michael Fabricant was accosted by a protester.
People must have a right to protest peacefully and democratically, to put their alternative point of view. But that shouldn't mean that people can be spat at or assaulted just for having the temerity to go to a party conference. And I think the police, as much as anyone else, need to learn lessons from that.
But Sir David's closest colleagues remain steadfast that he wouldn't want MPs to become distant from their constituents.
You cannot put some great distance between yourselves and your constituents, and you shouldn't want to, and he wouldn't have wanted that. It would have been the last thing he would have wanted. So I think there are things that could be done, but I don't think you need to be obsessive about it, because MPs must be among the people.
What I think is critically important is how MPs continue to do their surgeries, whether they do them over the phone or via Zoom or in person. We must defend the principle that a constituent that needs help can get hold of their MP one way or another, because that link between an MP and their constituents is absolutely fundamental to the British system. And we cannot allow terrorists or wicked people to break that link, because if we do, then the bad guys are winning. And David would never have wanted that.
Well, it couldn't have happened to a nicer man. And one thing about his legacy that I didn't actually get to include in that report is, of course, Southend, his beloved Southend, has become a city.
It has. It's something he really campaigned for, didn't he?
Something like 20 years, I think. But when I spoke to Mark Francois for that report, he was saying there was they called it kind of Amess time or something. And it was once a year he'd stand up in Parliament and he would basically talk for 4 or 5 minutes about why Southend should become a city. And it became a bit of a running joke. And then, you know, a year ago, this awful thing happened and Southend has become a city in his honour. So it's exactly what he would have wanted. And that's one thing to take from it, I think. And I think now, actually, the replacement of Sir David Amess is going to try and make Southend the new city of culture.
She is. She's campaigning for it for 2029, isn't she?
Is she? Well, I'm glad you're across it.
Yeah.
What's her name, then? I can't remember.
I think it's Anna Frith.
Anna Frith, that's it.
Is that right?
I think so, yeah. So that would be nice as well, I think.
It would be a very nice thing.
And you've met him, haven't you?
Do you know? Yeah, but I mean, not in an official capacity, not as a journalist, but just as a, you know, being in the House of Commons as I sometimes am, and he knows lots of people that I know, and just a really nice, genuine, animal-loving man, just a really decent human being, which makes that. I mean, when it happened, the shock was just palpable, actually.
It really was, yeah. And anyway. I mean, and being in that community as well, I mean, real emotion there, tears from people who knew him personally. I mean, as you say, people person, he was known, when I was speaking to Anne Widdecombe for this report there, saying known for running 10 minutes late because he'd have to stop and talk to everybody on the way. Yeah. And chat to the waitress. She said when they were out for dinner, they'd always spend hours at the table because he'd have to know the waitress's life story before they ordered.
Reminds me of you.
Does, yeah. Got a lot in common there.
And also reminds me of Aidan McGee, who never stops talking, which is just as well for us.
We're a right team, aren't we?
He's here with all the sport for you in just a moment.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today. Most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow. But so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening. And we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade. And actually, much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures. But generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off. So most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
It is 7:27. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Eric.
And we're now joined by Aidan McGee to take us through the weekend's sporting action. Aidan, let's start with Premier League, shall we? What's going on?
Yeah, can I just start? You're talking about U-turns now. I've just got my mind in overdrive. How many U-turns do you have to do before you're travelling in one continuous circle? Have you thought about it?
2.
Yeah, it reminds me of my driving test a little bit. My
did it?
my
You
examiner.
passed the first time.
No, I really didn't. No,
surprised.
but my examiner said, "Oh, the next available junction, Aidan, I should like you to take the next left."
Right.
So I literally went left into a multi-storey car park. Lucky I had £1 on me because I had to pay £1 to get out.
Oh, no.
Ridiculous. I know. Yeah, let's stick to... It's probably best I stick to football, really.
I hate to tell you, Mr McGee, but on this occasion, you have not passed your driving test.
No, I didn't. Speeding and undue hesitancy is still a bone of contention.
Did you pass on your second?
I did, yeah.
Oh,
but that was 12 years later. So,
really?
Yeah, it scarred me. It really did, yeah.
Oh, dear.
It really did. So I thought of... when I just hear of U-turns, I just think, you know... In fact, you can't do a turn... It's a turn in the road now in the driving test, isn't it? It's not a three-point turn.
Oh, do you not do a 3-point? Do you not call it 3-point?
No, it's a turn in the road. It changed in that 12 years between my first and second test.
Oh, right.
You had to go back and revise.
I always think I've failed if I've not done it in 3.
Well, that's the kind of level you set for yourself, yeah. But I think sometimes it takes like 21 goes or whatever. So
I'm an average of about 20, I think.
Yeah.
But very poor driver. When did you pass your driving test?
When?
As in, how many?
Oh, first time.
Of course you did. I could have told you that.
48% is the pass rate first time.
Which I was just thinking, which is 1990.
Yeah, 48%. So that's why I comforted myself. I thought it's pretty much a lottery, isn't it? 1 in 2.
So you're in the lucky.
Not a lottery, no.
Well, it's 48. More people pass before midday because they can't. Otherwise, they have a quota. And mine was 1:30 in the afternoon, so it wasn't.
That's what it was, Aidan.
Yeah, exactly.
And when did you pass?
1991. Were you born then?
What month?
Oh, about June, I think, or May,
Good.
June.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I think that was the number 1, wasn't it, around about then?
Was it?
Aidan, the things
It's
you
got
know.
weird memories, Aidan.
Yeah, I know.
What about the football?
So, we saw Brighton played Brentford last night. I gave up my ticket. I was going to go, but I was in here early, so I thought, no, I'll be professional about it. I'll sit home and revise. But I saw a really decent game. Now, Ivan Toney is really interesting, right? He scored 25 penalties out of 26. He scored another one last night. He's on the verge of being called into the England squad. Well, he's already been called in, but he's not actually played any minutes. But this is interesting because we've got a World Cup in the middle of the season, so anyone who's in form now, he's got a real chance of being called up. And he's got this wonderful technique, Stephen. He doesn't look at the ball when he's taking a penalty. He stares into space. And it really confuses the goalkeeper because the goalkeeper can usually do his homework on the penalty taker by looking at the eyes. And you give him the eyes. Sometimes he might look that way and put it that way. This guy doesn't even look at the ball. He said, the ball doesn't move, so I'm not interested in the ball. I know I'm going to strike it. I'll look ahead. And someone said to him last night, well, what do you think about? He just said, I think about sipping cocktails on the beach. And he just knocks it in. And the goalkeeper just doesn't know where he's going, and then he puts it in, and that helped Brentford to a 2-0 win last night. But he's on the verge of the England squad. Yeah, exactly.
We need him on the England squad then, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I mean, as I say, it's about sometimes when in a World Cup year, a player can hit form in October. It's always said that the English game is at its peak in October. You know, everyone's got a suntan left over from the summer. We're in the first few weeks of the season. Everyone's like nice and fit. Now, in a World Cup where it's halfway through the season, that could play into England's hands. Don't forget the temperature isn't going to come into it because the stadiums are all air-conditioned. It might play into the hands of a striker who's banging form, and that's exactly what Ivan Toney is at the moment. So it's an interesting story around him. We've got Manchester City-Liverpool tomorrow, of course, 4:30. Huge game now. Liverpool winning 7-1 at Rangers in the week. Their first competitive game they've ever played at Ibrox. Much more difficult than it looked. They were 1-0 down early on. Hit back with 7 goals. It was a really rarefied atmosphere.
Who's favourite out of that one, then?
Well, I'd say at the moment, I mean, Jurgen Klopp says Man City are the best team in the world at the moment. I think he's absolutely right. But it's at Anfield. Man City do not travel well to Anfield. They've won there once since 2003. Before that, I think it was 1981, before they won previously. Now, even when they won there 2 years ago, there were no fans in the ground. So Anfield is a completely different venue when it's full of supporters just getting right behind their team. Those fans weren't there 2 years ago. It definitely helped Man City. So, I mean, Liverpool need to win. If they don't, then they're 16 points. If they lose, they're 16 points behind Man City. And you'd have to say, even though I sat on this desk last Christmas when Liverpool were 12 points behind, I said it's all over. And I was wrong because Liverpool reeled them in. I think 16 would be too much to do, even though Erling Haaland is now in the team. That makes a big difference. He was on the bench in the week. They didn't even use him.
Talking about Scousers, Everton versus Tottenham.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Tottenham have seen... it's interesting. Everton went into their game against Man United last week. They lost 2-1, but they played all right. The defence has been pretty good. Tottenham have been deemed to be quite boring so far, but I wonder how much of that criticism is actually coming from people outside of the club, as in people, Arsenal fans, for example, or West Ham fans. I'm not sure. I think they're in contention. I don't think they've hit their stride yet. But there's other games going on this weekend as well. Leicester versus Crystal Palace is interesting because Leicester's manager's under pressure. Brendan Rodgers, he scored an excellent win the other week against Nottingham Forest on the Monday, but followed that up with a defeat at Bournemouth. So that's what the Premier League is like. You never know. You can never depend. You can never look at fixtures and say, right, we're going to win those 4 and we're going to have this number of points. I remember a Fulham manager saying to me 20 years ago, Chris Coleman, he said, Aidan, at the start of every season, every team that's going to finish below about 10th in the league looks at the fixtures and you say, where am I going to get 10 wins from? Bear in mind you play 38 games. Where am I going to get 10 wins from? You get 10 wins, 30 points, 6 draws, 36. That should keep you up. Now, the maths is probably the same about now, but now there's just no guarantees now. I think it's impossible for any team to look at, well, but outside, certainly below the top 8, to look at the league table and think we're going to win those games because it's so competitive and it's so unpredictable.
Yeah. Well, it's what keeps us interesting.
Of course it is, yeah, exactly.
Aidan, thank you. We'll catch you with you a little bit later on.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll work out U-turns before then.
Yeah, do.
2 or 4? I vote 4.
Are you sure you passed your driving test?
Yeah, I might have. I think I got it off the back of a cornflake packet.
Yeah, I probably did. Look, it's 7:33. Don't go anywhere because we've got all your newspapers coming up in just a couple of minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
"7:35 morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie."
Let's have a look at today's front pages, which are dominated by one story. The Times says Truss fights for survival as Jeremy Hunt replaces Kwarteng as Chancellor.
The Guardian goes with a day of chaos as there is another major U-turn.
The Mail asks how much more can she and the rest of us take as the Tory chaos continues.
The Sun pays tribute to Robbie Coltrane, perhaps best known to the younger generation at least, for playing Hagrid in Harry Potter. He's died at the relatively young age of 72.
Yeah, very sad news, isn't it? Well,
It's
time to
sorry
go
about that.
through the papers now with Kevin Schofield, who's political editor of HuffPost UK, and the author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Kevin, let's start with you, shall we? And this is Tory MPs tell Truss it's over. In the eye.
Yeah, I think it's now a question of when rather than if Liz Truss goes and how quickly Conservative MPs can bring that about. Yesterday was meant to be the day when she attempted at least to draw a line under it by bowing to the inevitable and U-turning on increase in corporation tax. I mean, the biggest shock was obviously sacking Kwasi Kwarteng, her very close political ally. The two of them wrote the mini-budget together.
I was going to say, I mean, part of that doesn't even sit... I can see politically why she had to do it, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't sit very well because we all know that she was as much a part of that as he was.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably why he felt safe in his job, because basically sacking him for the mini-budget is essentially sacking herself because she signed off on it, she helped write it. So that was why the day before... Kwasi Kwarteng confidently said on the TV,
I'm going
100%, absolutely, I'm not going anywhere. So, you feel a little bit sorry for him, actually. Within a day, he was gone. So yeah, if, as I say, her intention yesterday was to draw a line under it and, put it all behind her and move on, I just don't think that's what. If anything, it made the situation worse. We talked earlier about the press conference not going very well for her. And now... you're struggling to find a Conservative MP who will actually stick up for her. Last night I noticed the Cabinet had obviously been given the order to tweet supportively. They were all given a GIF to tweet, basically saying we're all behind it. And some of it was very lukewarm. Simon Clarke just said, I support the Prime Minister. Tom Tugendhat didn't even tweet anything, he just tweeted the image. I think
Why
Kemi
do they
Badnoch
think-
didn't even tweet that. I mean,
But why do they
itself.
think in this day and age that everyone being given an image to tweet is we're not all just gonna see through that?
No, I agree.
No, again, it makes it look phony, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Because it's much more efficient to say to them, go online and say something authentic that you think about what's going on.
Yeah.
Positive, like with a positive slant on it, and just go and say different things. It's kind of very corporate as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, when a business tweets out a load of messages from its employees, it's just a very, very weird tactic.
Yeah.
And what they've got to be doing now is building trust. Everything has got to be about trust. And that doesn't fight it.
No,
So-
it doesn't.
And they always tweet them at the same time. They're obviously sent it.
Yeah.
And then instead of saying, like, don't all tweet it at once, and then you look at your Twitter timeline and it's the boom, but you think, well, that's not heartfelt, because they're all just obviously been told to do it. So, there's all sorts of problems. I think their communications operation is really bad. That hasn't helped. But in essence, it's more to do with the woman at the top. And she just doesn't have that empathy, I don't think, that it's going to, win people round.
That's what many people were saying yesterday, weren't they? I mean, you were saying that there were 4 questions yesterday and the same answer kept coming out, and it was that same...
Like the robot, used to say that about the May bot. Remember when Theresa May was Prime Minister?
Well, she makes Theresa May sound...
Well, Theresa May sounds
Human.
warm
Sort
and...
Yes, I like Theresa, but...
I saw a tweet that said this morning was saying that Liz Truss makes Theresa May look like Barack Obama. In terms of being an orator. So it's not good, is it? I mean, Kwarteng, there's reports in the Times this morning that saying that he thinks sacking him will only buy Truss a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we saying? Weeks? Will she get to the 31st of October in this next?
Well, I don't know. I think we've almost changed our opinions this morning, haven't we, Kevin? The timeline seems to have sped up. And watching Nigel Nelson there say, it could be by the end of the week, just seems absolute madness. But I think the problem is she is ostracising so many people that could be helping her right now. Kwasi is a long-time friend and ally. So if she's kind of doing that to him, what's she going to do to anyone else?
Yeah, and that's he's got no loyalty to her. And
No.
that story that you mentioned in the Times, that's obviously incredibly well-sourced, i.e. it's come from him or somebody very close to him, and he'll have authorised it. So,
what story is that?
So we've not come to that one yet, but just the one that Ellie mentioned there about the Kwasi
Just me
Kwarteng
going off
saying...
script.
No.
Kwasi Kwarteng saying that she's only got a few weeks left,
Yeah.
which is, I think, true. But I mean, I spoke to one MP a couple of days ago who said, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have given her till Easter. He said, if you'd asked me last week, I'd have given her till Christmas. He says, now I'd give her to the end of the month. So that just shows you how things are just spinning out of control.
It is moving fast. Every day it's a new challenge, as we're saying.
What's happening with the Deputy Prime Minister, Therese Coffey?
Gosh. Yeah, so Therese Coffey has suggested that pharmacists should be allowed to prescribe antibiotics.
Right.
And this is seen by medical professionals as pretty chaotic, because we know that resistance to antibiotics is a major problem for the health service and for people in general. That, they're really meant to be a last port of call for someone maybe who's got some kind of illness that they're just struggling on with. And she's actually ignoring the advice of some very eminent professionals, such as Chris Whitty, who had to tell her that this is a real problem to the healthcare system in the UK.
But it doesn't indicate that more would be prescribed. It just means you can get them from somewhere else, which is easier to get to.
Well, but the idea is if you thought it was easier as a patient, wouldn't you be more readily inclined to go ask for them? Do you see what I mean? Like, they might get more requests, so therefore it might go up just by...
It is frustrating, though. I mean, if it's a 2 or 3 week wait to see your GP, which it certainly is in my area, I mean, sometimes it is so frustrating when you just need a set of antibiotics. I mean, you don't take them for fun, but you'd go to the chemist and it could be sorted in an afternoon. I think that's a better use of GP's time, is it not?
Well, it is, but I think, it's not solving the underlying problem, which is that you can't get an appointment and people are still not back in surgeries with face-to-face appointments when they really need to physically see a GP. So, it feels like it's a bit sticking plaster as a solution. And she is just ignoring loads of evidence from eminent scientists.
But also, she might not be health secretary for much longer.
Well,
either,
maybe
you know
not.
what I mean? If Liz Truss goes, then so does Therese Coffey. So.
Yeah.
Well, unless she becomes Prime Minister.
Well, you never know. You never know. You never know. Let's have a look at the Sun then, Kevin, and Trexit, as they're calling it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've chosen this one because it's significant. I think this morning that Conservative supporting newspapers appear to have turned on her now as well. We'll maybe come to the Mail next time round, but it's just there's a sense when you read this story, the language that they use is basically, she junked her mini budget, chucked her chancellor, she's in turmoil, no sign of contrition in the 8-minute press conference, lame duck, she's lost control. I mean, it's just, they've gone from being supportive not so long ago, just a few weeks ago.
The lady started turning last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the Sun is very good at picking up the public mood and also the mood of Tory MPs. And if they're writing stories like this now saying Trexit, i.e. she's off, it's going to be bang on the money.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned them. I mean, their headline is that one. How much more can she and the rest of us take? The day after the mini-budget, their headline was, at last, a proper Tory budget.
Well, that's the thing. It's made them look stupid, hasn't it? They absolutely bought into the mini-budget. They thought it was fantastic, so they put that on the front page, went all guns blazing for it, and now it's all falling about their ears, so they're looking for something to do, because no newspapers, no editors like to look foolish, and they've been made to look foolish by the Prime Minister. So, and as I say, once they turn on her, there's no coming back from it.
Is the writing on the wall then if the press is?
I would say so. And, there's a column here by Trevor Kavanagh, obviously highly experienced former political editor of the Sun, and he describes her as a dead parrot, nailed to her perch by Tory MPs terrified of a suicidal election. So he's basically saying that she's toast as well.
This is the thing, though. If it goes to a general election, is it going to be a wipeout? That's what Conservative MPs will be thinking now.
Well, yeah, but it's always that thing, isn't it? Before an election, the polls always say, oh, it will be a landslide for the other party, But I still feel that Labour lacks the oomph to really take power, actually. And I think when it came to it, actually, often voters, when they get to the polling booth, sort of think, oh, maybe I won't take that risk and vote for that party that might be better. Maybe I'll just do what I always know. Or maybe I'll spoil my vote, or maybe I won't bother voting. I think we would have very low voter turnout if we had an election in the next couple of months.
Which is interesting, isn't it? And it's going to be one or the other, either very low or very high.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, probably, see, it would work in Labour's favour, that, wouldn't it? Because you'd imagine the Labour supporters would be getting out there. They see it as their chance.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of Tory voters who perhaps would go, oh.
I just can't be bothered, But, I mean, if Labour can't take it at the next chance, that's it. I don't see the point.
They might as well pack up and go home if they don't win from here,
Because it's an open goal at this stage.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Right, what are we looking at next? Let's look at The Crown, shall we, Nikki? Let's change tack a little bit. Let's go to the Telegraphs. This is Prince William reportedly unhappy with the Netflix show because we're in that period in The Crown now when Charles and Diana's marriage is on the rocks.
Yeah, so actually, I think this article is a bit disingenuous, which is not something I would usually say, but we know how Prince William feels very strongly about the interview, the Bashir interview with Diana, the BBC interview, which was basically faked, and she was manipulated into doing it. And he's come out, kind of unequivocally said, it should never be shown again on the BBC, and the BBC have agreed, actually, to that. But actually, in this piece, he hasn't directly said it shouldn't be part of The Crown. A source has said, we know what he thinks about the BBC, and therefore we can presume what he would think about Netflix profiteering. But he hasn't actually said that, so I think it's really important to make that distinction. But I think it does raise the ethical issue of how do you portray something that at the time was, itself a lie? It'd be interesting, because if Netflix have done it in a way that is such... they kind of portray the interview and then they show the backstage of it with the things that weren't ethical about it.
Reportedly, that is what they're going to do, isn't
Which would make sense then, wouldn't it? Because that would actually make it even more tragic. What happens? She's basically manipulated. That's the truth. She was manipulated into it. And then she starts to get paranoid and then things fall apart.
And this is where we get confused, because people treat it as a documentary series and it's a drama.
Well, exactly. And ultimately, The Crown has been around for a long time now. It has its own kind of artistic licence. You can feel what you feel about it, but it isn't fact and it isn't history.
Yeah.
So, but I think the important point about this is that Prince William hasn't actually said that. So.
No. Fair point. I still have never seen it.
No. It's very good. Very, very good. And I think it's really been watched a lot in the past month, obviously, since the Queen's passing.
Yeah, it's gone right up the Netflix. When you go on Netflix, it tells you, what's hot right now, and The Crown is right up there for obvious reasons.
And apparently she watched it.
It is
reportedly.
It's fascinating to watch it and think, what do they think of it?
Yeah.
That's always at the back of your mind.
You would be tempted, wouldn't you? If it was a programme about yourself.
Oh, no.
No, you wouldn't want to watch that.
No.
No, you would. Come on.
No. Can you imagine sitting there saying, well, that isn't right, and that isn't right, and that isn't right?
It would spoil your enjoyment a little bit.
I'd just get annoyed. I mean, it's like, I don't read all that sort of
Unless
nonsense
they put
on
a positive
Wikipedia
spin.
and all that sort of thing, which people just sit there and make up.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean any of it's true.
I think it is generally very beautifully done, but I do think, as you say, Nikki, I wonder how they feel watching it, especially Prince William and Prince Harry. I mean, for a mother who's no longer here,
to
watch those really painful last few months, it must be really, really difficult. OK, should we look at mortgages, Kevin? We've got time just to quickly look at that on the Guardian.
Just to say, we talk about the personalities at Westminster, but this is real world stuff. This is what it means when interest rates go up because of political choices. 5,000 more on average, £5,000 more a year on people's mortgages by 2024, which incidentally is also the time when we're supposed to be having the next general election. It might be sooner, right enough, but pity the government going into the next election if people's mortgages have gone up that high, because they'll look for someone to blame and they'll probably blame the government. £5,000, I mean, that is a lot of money.
Well, let's hope everything gets brought back under control long before then.
Otherwise, there's going to be repossessions, isn't there? That's what we're going to see in 2023. Not good at all.
Look, thanks both. Nikki, Kevin, we'll catch up with you both a little bit later on. In the meantime, at 7:49, let's bring you up to date with some of the other headlines. And in fact, actually, it's just what Kevin was talking about. More than 5 million homes could see their annual mortgage payments rise by more than £5,000 between now and 2024. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. It says a fifth of that cost reflects predicted interest rate rises since the mini-budget.
Vladimir Putin says Russia should be finished calling up reservists in the next 2 weeks. It'll end a divisive mobilisation that's seen thousands of men summoned to fight in Ukraine. Putin also said Russia had no plans for now for more airstrikes like it carried out this week, which fired more than 100 long-range missiles at targets across Ukraine.
A Vincent van Gogh painting at the National Gallery in London is back on display after being targeted by Just Stop Oil campaigners. They threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflowers to protest against fossil fuels, and then, helpfully, they glued themselves to the wall and waved cans of soup about. People who were listening to them for some reason. Thankfully, the picture was undamaged. It's behind glass.
Now, very sad news. The Scottish actor Robbie Coltrane, OBE, has died at the age of 72.
Oh, well, he was known for Cracker, of course. If you're old enough to remember that, back in the 90s, it was a cracker. Really brilliant stuff. He was in GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough, playing, of course, then, after all of that, Hagrid in Harry Potter. Well, what a man. I mean, really, what a man. What an amazing talent. Yet somehow quite private. Stephanie Tetchy, our showbiz queen,
good morning,
is here.
Stephen and Ellie.
I mean, this is it's particularly sad, not only because he was so beloved, but the fact that we didn't know he was ill, or we don't know what's gone on.
No, he was a very private man, as you said. I think we first kind of had inklings that he wasn't well when he pulled out of Comic-Con in June. He pulled out due to medical reasons, and he hasn't really been on TV as much as he usually is. But, his career is a testament of all the amazing things he's done over the 30 years he was on screen. He was very much a part of the 80s comedy circuit with, Blackadder, Nuns on the Run, Al Fresco.
Oh, Nuns on the Run. Was that with Eric Idle?
Yes. When I think of my childhood, I think of Nuns on the Runs. And, all the testament that he's received, the tributes that have come out from people from the Harry Potter stars. Like, we've had Daniel Radcliffe, who said Robbie was one of the funniest people I've met and used to keep us laughing constantly as kids on the set. Emma Watson says Robbie was like the most fun uncle I've ever had, but most of all, he was deeply caring and compassionate towards me as a child and as an adult. And J.K. Rowling said, I will never know anyone remotely like Robbie again. And I know, Ellie, you were talking about his character as Hagrid. It was only last year he returned to the screens for the 20th anniversary special, The Return to Hogwarts. And it was quite touching in that because, he was saying that, he may no longer be, on screens, but that character will live on for generations to come.
It will, and there's no way you could even read the books now without even picturing
no.
him in that role.
He was a larger-than-life character, you know, both on and off the screen, and he's one of those people that will be truly missed, and he's definitely cemented his name as one of the showbiz greats.
It's amazing, though, just how many millions of children will know him and love him. I mean, it's affected so many people all around the world.
His agent said in her statement that he received streams of letters from children all over the world for that character, and, you know, that's how much he was loved, you know.
And what is not, I do think it's nice when you can reflect really positively on someone who's died. And the fact that what comes across, I mean, I never had the pleasure of talking to him, but what comes across is someone who was not only talented, but who was warm and kind and generous of spirit.
And that's the thing, I think, you know, when you meet a lot of these celebrities, you think, oh my gosh, they could be quite egotistical, and sometimes they always say, never meet your stars, because you get greatly disappointed. But with someone like him, what you saw on screen is actually what you saw in real life. I didn't have the chance to interview him, but I know a lot of the industry who has, and no one has a bad word to say about him.
And that's what really strikes you, I think, reading these tributes that you've put together for us here as well. It's Emma Watson, Daniel Radcliffe, they grew up with him. I mean, he was a massive figure in their life. And obviously influential as well.
You know, J.K. Rowling said she knew that she wanted him to be Hagrid. Even he was like one of the first characters to be casted in that movie, because she said there was like no other person who could play him. So it goes to say how he was a one-off. He was a one-off star. When I think of my childhood, I think of the several moments I've seen him on TV, and he's, you know, quite memorable, like in Cracker.
Oh, Cracker!
Come on.
Fitz. I mean, that was. I mean, and that's interesting because obviously Hagrid is this unique character.
Yeah.
But Fitz was the sort of the sort of dark, dirty, gritty drama, which was just those sort of things that just really suck you in.
Yeah, and you know, rightly so with that role. He won it three BAFTAs in a year straight for Best Actor, and he's the only actor to have done that other than Michael Gambon. So it goes to show how much that role was amazing on TV and groundbreaking as well.
Yeah,
remarkable. To his talent, isn't it?
Yeah,
that he could, you know, do both roles.
Yeah,
absolutely incredible.
Stephanie, thank you very much indeed. We're catching you a little bit later on, aren't we?
Back. Yes,
oh,
so will
good.
be.
Thank heavens. Saturday morning is not the same without you on several times. Thank you very much indeed. Keep your thoughts coming through, if you would. And we've got much more to come for you, including what is, sadly, a continuing drama in the Tory party. The Prime Minister is clinging on to power. Can she keep hold of it?
That's all coming up after this weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today. Most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow, but so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening. And we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade. And actually, much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures. But generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off. So most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
The way we are delivering our mission right now has to change.
Another U-turn on the mini-budget and another Chancellor sacked. But has Liz Truss done enough to keep her own job?
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Saturday the 15th of October. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Ellie.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are and whatever you're up to today, you can take us with you. These are your top stories.
Former Foreign Secretary and leadership contender Jeremy Hunt has been named Chancellor, the fourth in as many months. Mr Kwarteng was sacked yesterday despite working with the PM on their shared economic vision.
It's been exactly a year since the MP David Amess was stabbed to death at his constituency surgery in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. We're asking if there's been any improvement to ministers' safety since his death.
From gentle giant Hagrid to crime psychologist Fitz, actor Robbie Coltrane has died, aged 72. We'll be paying tribute to the Scottish actor, described by Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling as a complete one-off.
Loads of you getting in touch this morning. We're going to run through loads of those in just a few minutes, actually. But keep your thoughts coming through. Join the conversation. You know how to do it. Send us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now to our top story. Prime Minister Liz Truss yesterday sacked Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and replaced him with former Minister Jeremy Hunt.
Now, as financial markets remain in turmoil, the Prime Minister says she accepts that her government's plans for unfunded tax cuts had gone further and faster than investors were expecting.
Admitting she had to change course, the Prime Minister maintained her commitment towards her economic plan for growth.
I have acted decisively today because my priority is ensuring our country's economic stability. As Prime Minister, I will always act in the national interest. This is always my first consideration. I want to be honest, this is difficult, but we will get through this storm and we will deliver the strong and sustained growth that can transform the prosperity of our country for generations to come.
Well, let's head to Downing Street, should we? And our political reporter, Catherine Forster. Morning to you, Catherine. I mean, whichever way you look at it, this is a very grim morning for the Prime Minister.
Yes, it really is. She has been just 5.5 weeks in office, but already, though she is in office, she appears to be clinging on to power. Yesterday, of course, she sacked her Chancellor, Kwarteng, who was a great friend and ideological ally, and replaced him with former Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt. She also did a second huge U-turn. They are now going to raise corporation tax to 25p, as former Chancellor Rishi Sunak had pledged. That pledge to keep corporation tax low that they've now changed on was a central pillar to her strategy for growth. So today she tried to get herself into a better position by making these changes. So far, it looks like she may have made her position even worse. At the press conference yesterday, she was hesitant. She spoke for less than 9 minutes. She only took 4 questions. The essence of all of those really was, why are you still here? And the Times are reporting today that the former Chancellor, Kwarteng, has indeed been saying that that may have bought her just a few weeks, but that the wagons are circling, and certainly the mood amongst Conservative MPs is very, very bleak indeed. There are many who fear that if she led them into a general election, the party would be absolutely decimated. They are wondering what to do. Clearly, she's only just got the job, but they are thinking what would have seemed unthinkable just a few short weeks ago about how they could get rid of her. So far, there's no agreement on who they would put in her place or how that would be done. Lots of talk of a unity ticket of a combination of Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt, who, of course, both went for the leadership. But very, very unclear what will happen going forward, and all we can safely say is that no one in the Conservative Party wants a general election. Beyond that, there is no real consensus on what should happen next.
Catherine, thank you.
Well, joining us in the studio now is Dan Falvey, who's the Deputy Digital Political Editor at the Daily Express. Good morning to you, Dan, and thank you so much for joining us. So what do you make of this then? Do you think Liz Truss has made her position worse?
I think undoubtedly. I think that press conference yesterday was her one chance to really tell her MPs and the country that she got it, that actually things weren't working out and she needed to do something to change it.
Well, didn't she do that?
I don't think she went far enough. She stood up there and she said that we're going to change course and that the Chancellor had gone, but she didn't explain what the Chancellor had done wrong. At the end of the day, these were her economic plans that she was going for during the Tory leadership contest. She didn't therefore explain why he had to go, exactly how far she's going to change and what exactly she had learnt from all of this. There was no apology, she didn't give that answer that I think would have given the satisfaction of her MPs.
What are Conservative MPs thinking now, do you think?
Well, I think they were thinking we need to see something from our leader, our Prime Minister, to convince us that she can stay. And I think yesterday they didn't get that. And I think they're now thinking, how long can this go on? I think we're now talking potentially just weeks left of her premiership, which, given that we're only 5 weeks in, is an extraordinary position to be in.
It is extraordinary. How would they even begin to get rid of her? I mean, there's all this talk of, say, well, Graham Brady, chair of the 22, would go and see her and say the backbenchers are unhappy. That is, I tell you now, that isn't going to make a jot of difference to her. It's going to have to be cabinet members, isn't it?
Well, so technically, the rules of the Conservative Party mean that there cannot be a challenge on her leadership for a year. Once you get into office, you have a year before there can be a leadership challenge. Now, the rules can be changed whenever Graham Brady wants them to, basically. So if there is enough support from backbenchers, he could go to Liz Truss and say, look, you can either try to get your own way out now, and we can do it with you resigning with a bit of dignity, or I can change the rules and we can go for a no-confidence vote, and I don't think that's what you want. So he could force it that way without the need for cabinet members.
What do we make of Jeremy Hunt coming in now as the new Chancellor? Was that the right call by Liz Truss? And why did he take that role? Do you think he could be positioning himself for a top job?
Well, in terms of was it the right person to take that role, I think she sees that she needs to reach out and try to unify the party and bring those Rishi Sunak supporters from the leadership election on board. But the problem is, he is very much does not agree with the Trussonomics. He said during the leadership election that he would quite like corporation tax to be lower as well, but what he's come out today has basically said that he wants to see, he thinks there needs to be higher taxes now and lower public spending in order to balance the books, and that's nothing that Liz Truss stands for. So her hardline supporters are really quite cross that he's in. So if anything, she's just annoyed more of the party. In terms of what does it mean for him, why is he taking it? I think we've seen Jeremy Hunt on the sidelines of frontline politics for a number of years now, and he saw this as a chance for him to get his foot back in the door and maybe start to rebuild that career.
Maybe. Dan, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get the opinion now of former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Mellor. David, good to see you this morning. Yesterday you were saying that Liz Truss was toast, and then all this happened. Is she still toast?
Oh, undoubtedly. You know, as the good book says, she's trying to prove there's life after death, and there isn't. She has no chance whatsoever of succeeding in rescuing her premiership. I think it was Kwarteng that I particularly said was toast, where he lasted 5 hours after saying that. So I just want to say to you, if the Conservative Party has any capability to save itself, they will have to form up to her and tell her to go. And the other thing is, it's quite interesting that the Conservative Party was not able to organise the last leadership election. It spent weeks whittling down the number of candidates, and then it went to the membership. The Conservative Party membership, a small rump of generally elderly people out in the sticks. There's nothing wrong with being an elderly person out in the sticks. I'm an elderly person out in the sticks. I'm down in Dorset. But one thing I do know, the only people who can judge on whether somebody can be an effective Prime Minister are those who see him or her day in, day out. Got to remember that when Truss, there were the first vote of Conservative members, of Conservative members of Parliament, Truss got only 50 votes. They know her. They know she isn't up to it, and manifestly she isn't up to it. That's the truth.
So if she was to go, if they were to get her out, how do they then get a new leader? I mean, we're looking at sort of Michael Howard's situation.
Yes. Yes, I mean, they're exactly right. In 2003, when Michael Howard was effectively drafted in because everybody stood aside. Look, the Conservative Party, I first joined the Conservative Party 55 years ago, right? The Conservative Party is supposed to know how to run the country. What is quite clear is the Conservative Party doesn't even know how to run itself at the moment. How can they? How can they have any doubt, first of all, that Truss has got to go, and secondly, that they cannot have a shambles like this ridiculously prolonged leadership election? They've got to do something very quickly, and if they can't organise themselves, then they've got real problems. You know, all the old jokes come back into fashion. I remember one where an opinion pollster goes to a chap and says, "Are you a member of an organised political party?" And the fellow says, no, I'm a Conservative. I mean, this is becoming ludicrous. And if they don't get a grip, they will be swept from power. And if they so fail to get a grip that there has to be an election sooner than 2 years' time, they will not only lose, they will lose catastrophically. Again, you know, I draw on history here. In 1997, although John Major was a perfectly capable Prime Minister, but he came unstuck with the ERM, and even though Kenneth Clarke, for the years in a run-up to the 1997 election, was a very good Chancellor, what happened was the public had delivered their verdict, and the Tories lost more than half their seats in 1997. I know because I was one of those who lost my seat, and I just think, you know, history repeats itself. Forget it was who said it, you'll probably know. History repeats itself, first as a tragedy, second as a farce. This is a farce. Bring down the curtain. We've had enough of this farce.
I mean, by what you're saying, it would surprise no one then, and people like yourself who are very across all of this. If whoever they brought in, they still lost the next election. So wouldn't it be a case of almost mitigating the losses to an extent? I know you are no great fan, but I mean, Boris could mitigate those losses, couldn't he?
Well, I mean, Truss has obviously been paid by Boris to make him look good. It's a very difficult thing to do, but she's made him look good. Look, the reality of the situation is that the Conservatives need a capable Prime Minister. And, you know, as your colleague was saying, and quite rightly, I agree with every word he said, she hasn't even got the replacement Chancellor right, because while I'm a big admirer of Jeremy Hunt, I think he shouldered the burden of being Health Secretary for a number of years and did it valiantly. But, you know, here is a politician who has never, ever been in the Treasury, right? And he's being asked to go into the Treasury and rescue. Yet when I was Chief Secretary of the Treasury, I mean, I wouldn't be capable of believing we could be in this mess. This is an unprecedented mess, almost. You've got to go back to the days of Dennis Healey in the 70s to find a mess like this. And yet she has selected a man who hasn't spent a millisecond as a Treasury Minister. You know, it's a bit like saying to a dust cart driver, "Here, mate, here's a Formula One racing car. Go and win the next Grand Prix." Well, it's not going to happen, is it?
Well, David, on that note, what do you make of these calls by some Conservative MPs for Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt to step up together and take over?
I think it's the nearest the Conservative Party have got to an answer. Look, let's be quite clear about this. You know, I've been talking to GB News all this summer, and I've never said a word, a single millisyllable in favour of Liz Truss, because I knew she couldn't do it. I've always had much more time for Rishi Sunak, although Rishi Sunak made some spectacularly expensive mistakes during the pandemic and must be regretting all those billions that were tipped down the drain during the pandemic. He is an impressive man. He looks the part. When you talk to him, he seems to be very capable. I think, you know, the shunting aside of Penny Mordaunt in favour of Liz Truss, which happened fairly cynically by the Conservative Party, wasn't their best idea. And the nearest thing they've got to a dream team, I mean, it's not a wonderful dream. I've had much better dreams in my life, but Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt are the nearest the Conservative Party have got to a rescue. And if they're too stupid to understand that, they deserve to lose. And do you know what, Mystic Mellor? He tells you they will lose, and they will not just lose, they will be humiliated at a general election.
David, as always, it's good to talk to you. Thank you.
Mystic Manor, I like that.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Well, he is very
calls,
good.
makes the calls.
You know, and whether you agree with David or not, and I know a lot of you don't because you get in touch and tell us. But that's sort of the point, isn't it? It brings up ideas that then just get you thinking. He's certainly a man who knows how it all works. Don't necessarily have to agree with him, but he knows how it works. And so that's, yeah, it's important to get that perspective.
And if you don't agree with them, let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We do love to hear from you. We've got loads of your emails and your messages, and we're going to get through some of those in just a few minutes.
Yes, but in the meantime, at 8:16, let's bring you up to date with some of the headlines. And wish we could bring you something a bit more cheery. More than 5 million homes could see their mortgage payments rise by more than £5,000 a year between now and 2024. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. It says 20% of that cost reflects predicted interest rate rises since the mini-budget.
The Vincent van Gogh painting at the National Gallery in London is now back on display after being targeted by climate activists. Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflower's portrait in protest against fossil fuels, and then they glued themselves to the wall. The Met Police say the painting was undamaged as it's behind glass.
22 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in Turkey. The Interior Minister says more than 100 miners were on site at the time. They don't know what caused the explosion.
Now, we were saying it's incredible, isn't it, how quickly time passes, but can you believe it's been 1 year since the Conservative MP Sir David Amess was killed on the 15th of October 2021 He was stabbed more than 20 times during constituency surgery.
Well, his friends and family are reflecting on his legacy and whether enough has changed to keep MPs safe.
Now, one man who can perhaps help answer this is Chris Phillips, who's the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Good morning to you, Chris.
Good morning.
I was there in Leigh-on-Sea a year ago today. It's actually very local to my hometown. It's a sleepy town in Essex. What was your reaction on that day when you heard this news that this awful event had happened?
Well, of course, these things always catch you by surprise. It's horrific. Yes, any individual being killed is awful. But we've got to be realistic here and say that it's not unusual for members of Parliament across the world, unfortunately, to be targeted like this. And so poor old David Amess was just the unlucky person in all this.
I mean, this is the problem. People want answers as to how to stay safe. And it's one thing when we look at counter-terrorism strategies, but it's another thing when you're looking at a sort of lone wolf attacker.
Yeah, and of course we all become complacent. You know, this was 12 months ago. You know, just a few weeks ago, we saw MPs walking through a crowd of people and getting assaulted, but certainly getting shouted at, and they put themselves at risk because they didn't think for 1 minute that they would be attacked. But of course, these things do happen, and we've seen the former Prime Minister of Japan get murdered, assassinated. We've also seen the Argentinian deputy with a gun at her head and was so lucky to survive just a month or so ago. So this stuff is going on around the world, and we become complacent, and we really shouldn't, and certainly MPs shouldn't.
It's such a difficult balance, though, isn't it, Chris? because when it was Harbi Ali's court case was being heard, there was discussion that he was looking at high-ranking, high-profile ministers and looking to attack them as well. It looked quite difficult when he was doing his research, and there was suggestion in court that he targeted Sir David Amess because he was a backbench MP and he was simply tweeting on his Twitter account where he was holding his constituency surgery. But it's such a difficult balance, isn't it? Because to be a constituency MP, you have to be open to the public. You have to be willing to be front.
Well, all members of the Parliament want to be open and talking to their constituents. Of course they do. But the predictability of actually having your surgery at a set time in a place that's unprotected, and you haven't taken really the necessary steps to make sure that you're as safe as possible.
So what are the necessary steps? I mean, because certainly police are aware, aren't they, of every MP's surgeries. They know where they're going on and when.
And the MPs all get lots of advice. You know, the police within Westminster give them lots and lots of advice as to how to run their surgery, what to do, make sure that they only see people by appointment, make sure they've got people with them, that they've got an escape route. All these things are there, but of course MPs, like us all actually, you know, we're all the same. We all become very complacent. A few weeks after something bad has happened, we kind of get on with business as usual, and I think that is the danger here.
Do you think we need to slip into a different frame of mind? I mean, all of us in all of this. Do we need to start thinking about that?
I think it really helps if you think through scenarios and what would I do if, what ifs. Those are the things that really will help you to, if you're confronted by someone with a knife or a gun, what would I do? And it's the same for MPs. And the other thing that worries me actually a lot about this is how everything's been dialed up. I think Nicola Sturgeon the other day talking about hatred and disliking other members of Parliament, and you just think, well, you know, we need to tone this down. What happened to being nice to each other, and politics is a difficult game at the best of times. There's lots of mad, sad, and bad people out there, and we do all need to take precautions, but we also need to be careful about how we talk.
Yeah.
Should there be security at these constituency surgeries that are held? Should there be someone on the door? I mean, Anne Widdecombe in that report, reflecting on a year since Sir David Amess's death, we're talking about security. She said that there was not another man in the room, perhaps suggesting that there should have been a security officer. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, that's an option, and I think the MPs have got that as an option. It is difficult because they, as we said before, they want to be as open and available as possible. It costs money to bring security into these places. I think there are sensible steps that you can go to without going down that route. But we have to also be aware that this guy was out to kill an MP. and it could easily have been one or two of the others. He just so happened to be able to work out exactly where this MP would be in an unprotected building at a specific time, and he could lay his plans to do that. So this complacency and the predictability does mean that MPs are laying themselves open a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sad but true, isn't it? Chris, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We all need to be a bit more careful, a bit more aware of our surroundings, I think.
Yeah, it's just taking precautions, isn't it? So it is interesting to see how much has changed because, I mean, even if you go onto David Amess's Twitter account now, one of the last things was, I will be at this place at this time, please do come and see me. And you wouldn't think anything of it, but obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing. And you're very open, aren't you? And exposed. It's just such an awful and tragic case.
Yeah, it certainly is. Look, don't go anywhere because we've got something to cheer you up, actually, in a couple of minutes. We're looking ahead to a historic night of women's boxing.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today. Most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow, but so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening. And we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade. And actually, much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures. But generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off. So most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. The time is 28 minutes past 8.
Now, I thought you're sitting out for this, though I don't know why. It should be great in the ring. Tonight,
No.
The biggest fight in women's British boxing history is taking place at the O2 in London, and all eyes are going to be on the English boxer Savannah Marshall and the American fighter Claressa Shields.
Well, it's the first televised all-women's professional boxing programme in Britain, and it's been 10 years in the making.
Alice Porter went to find out more.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the historic first all-women's card in the history of boxing.
The tense rivalry between Savannah Marshall and Claressa Shields has been going on for a decade, ever since the two first boxed in the opening stages of the Amateur World Championships. Claressa Shields suffered the only loss in her career, a loss she still disputes. For Savannah Marshall, it was a victory, and she became only the second English boxer ever to take the world amateur title. But now both women are competing professionally as part of the first all-women's boxing card in Britain, with 9 women fighting it out at a sold-out O2 arena. To promote the fight, the boxers took to the Thames, and I was on board.
Women's boxing has certainly come a long way. It was only in 1996 that the Amateur Boxing Association of England finally lifted its 116-year ban on female fighters. But it wasn't until the London Olympics in 2012 that Team GB finally got an all-female team of boxers. And Saturday's fight is certainly making history.
Savannah Marshall has been a pioneer in women's boxing and says the sport has dramatically changed from when she started.
When I first went to the boxing gym, no one wanted me there. The lads didn't want me there, the coaches didn't want me there, but I wanted to be there, and that was the only thing that mattered to me.
And on Saturday, I mean, it's going to be completely packed, hopefully with lots of young women who kind of want to do what you do and have been inspired by you. I mean, how does it feel knowing you're such a trailblazer?
I don't think it's hit me yet. Ask me after Saturday.
Former professional boxer Spencer Oliver says the rivalry between Savannah and Claressa will make tonight's fight even more significant.
That's sort of always been at the front of the women's sport. You know, these two girls have had this rivalry, and they come to heads now at the O2. In fact, in front of a packed-out O2 arena. So it's a monumental moment for women's sport, but it's a special moment. These girls have history, and I think that's what makes this fight so special.
While tonight may be the first all-female boxing card in Britain, it certainly won't be the last. Alice Porter, GB News.
We'll talk to the promoter in the next hour, and we'll try and find out why Ellie Costello is not in a bout of her own, because believe you me, she'd win. I know, a pair of boxing gloves on, you'd go for it.
I'd cry.
You wouldn't.
No, couldn't be doing that, come on.
Boxing.
No, it would be entertaining, we can say that much. But I think tonight should be good.
A former colleague of mine, he should remain nameless, used to do boxercise. She used to love a bit of boxing.
It's good cardio.
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah, I haven't done it. We should sign ourselves up.
You don't want to do any cardio, darling.
Oh, I do.
You're fine as you are, don't worry about it. Look, we've got much more to come for you in a couple of minutes as we take you through the papers once again.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Eddie. Right enough. No, right, Kevin? Right enough.
Right enough.
Right enough.
Right enough, you are. That was the wrong. I don't know what that was. That was Irish. Let's take a look at today's front pages, shall we? Which is dominated by one story and one story alone. The Times says Truss fights for survival as Jeremy Hunt replaces Kwasi Kwarteng as Chancellor.
The Guardian says a day of chaos as Truss performs another U-turn.
The Mail asks how much more can she and the rest of us take as the Tory chaos continues.
Truss clings to power after axing the Chancellor, says the Telegraph.
And The Sun pays tribute to actor Robbie Coltrane, known for playing Hagrid in Harry Potter. He's died at the age of 72.
As you know, political editor of the HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield, and author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson are both here. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Morning.
I do have a laugh when you two are in.
Oh, I'm glad.
You're not a bad pair right enough, you know.
As long as we keep you amused, that's the main thing.
Well, this is it.
You're quite good at that, you know.
Well, it's because I'm from very close to Scotland.
Not far.
What do you think, Kevin, out of 10?
Right enough, it's not bad.
I'd say a 7.
7.
Improvement.
Not as good as you think you are.
No, I'm not as good as I think I am, and I therefore must apologise to anybody in Scotland.
Who we've offended this morning.
But I do it out of love.
Exactly.
I
It's
love
affectionate.
Scotland. It is affectionate. I absolutely love
Gentle
Scotland.
ribbing.
Let's have a look at the Times, Kevin. Should we? To the Chancellor. Oh, former Chancellor, I should say.
Oh, yeah.
Happening very quickly, yeah.
So it turns out that not only was he sacked, which was brutal enough, but he only found out by reading it on the Times.
No.
The Times' excellent political editor, Stephen Swinford, tweeted, he was first with the news yesterday, to say that Kwasi Kwarteng was going to be sacked.
What did you think he was being brought back from Washington for?
Well, quite. Must have thought it must have been at the back of his mind that something was afoot. But given that the day before he'd said he was going nowhere, 100% absolutely safe as houses. So it says here, I mean, it's really nicely written. It said that he emerged from Heathrow smiling for the cameras before his meeting with Liz Truss. 16 minutes later, he was sitting in his ministerial car on the way back to London when the Times broke the news that he was about to be sacked. So he read it in the back of his car, and then he arrived in Downing Street shortly afternoon, by then cutting a glum figure, unsurprisingly. So yeah, not only did she knife her great political ally, she'd also, somebody in Number 10 had tipped off the Times before he actually knew himself, which is not...
That's grim.
Oh.
Well, there are reports in some of the papers this morning that Jeremy Hunt was already hired before Kwasi Kwarteng was fired.
Yeah, apparently, yes. So he was phoned at 9:30 in the morning, and he was on holiday in Belgium with his wife, Jeremy Hunt, and offered a job. Took a couple of minutes to think about it, then accepted. But all this was happening while Kwasi Kwarteng was still in the air.
It's interesting, David Mellor was saying this is all a disaster because Jeremy Hunt has never spent a millisecond in the Treasury.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, obviously, being a Health Secretary, being a Chancellor, they're very different kinds of skill sets that you need. But I suppose people think, well, we've seen Jeremy Hunt around, so therefore he's a safe pair of hands. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you can make the numbers work, does it?
No, totally. I mean, becoming Chancellor in the middle of an economic crisis would
Yeah.
be hard enough for anyone. But you're right, and I've never been in the Treasury before. Who's to say that he's got what it takes?
And I hate to say it because I don't like all this tabloidy stuff at times, though sometimes it's quite funny. I've heard Jeremy Hunt referred to previously as a wet lettuce. And now, of course, the Star's got, you know, the wet lettuce for the Prime Minister, all of it is live cam onto the wet lettuce now.
Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all very odd. But are we going to have 2 wet lettuces at the top?
Yeah, I mean, they would dispute that description.
Well, they would,
obviously.
of course.
But yes, you're obviously starting on the back foot, aren't you? That you are, you know, once you're a figure of fun as a politician, or anyone really, it's difficult to shake that off. And yeah, I mean, it's very funny actually what the Star are doing. But yeah, Liz Truss, I think it just shows that in the eyes of the public have already made up their minds, I think, about Liz Truss. I just don't see how she can possibly come back from it.
Nikki, why do you think Jeremy Hunt took the role then? If there's a lack of experience, well, no experience at all, what would make you want to come in at this stage?
Ego. I mean, isn't that what drives all politicians ultimately at the end of the day? The idea that they can... I mean, it's a better job than the job he had, and he never thought he was going to get another chance, maybe. So it's just that. And also thinking that maybe if he thinks the standard of performance in the Tory party is quite low at the top of the minute, then it doesn't really matter if he's that qualified. Surely he's going to kind of look better by default.
Talking about not being qualified for things, The Times is reporting Gary Lineker telling people to come out during the World Cup. Has he got no brains?
This is absolute madness story. So basically, Gary Lineker has decided that he's in a position to encourage any gay players who'll be playing in the World Cup that are not out to come out, specifically in Qatar.
While they're in Qatar.
Which has the death penalty, which apparently it doesn't use, but has the death penalty for homosexuality, which has imprisoned and fined foreign tourists. You know, there's been so much controversy about having the World Cup there anyway because of the gay rights issue. And now he thinks, as a straight man, it's OK to encourage other people that might feel very vulnerable and worried about their careers and their livelihoods to come out. It's so tone deaf.
I mean, it's just terrifying.
Well, it's very easy for him to say, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
It is a strange... And why is he saying that the World Cup should then become politicised? Because then that then becomes the issue, doesn't it? People, it's not, you're not talking about the football anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that's the danger. If that's what he's saying, then people speculate about who might be gay, and then that's when you get people chasing for stories and potentially putting vulnerable people at risk. Yeah. It's just so ill-considered.
It really is bizarre.
It's irresponsible as well. I mean, this is a nation where, I'm just reading now, same-sex activity is punishable by 7 years in jail or death by stoning for Muslim men under Sharia law. So, I mean, is it the time and place for virtual signalling?
It definitely isn't. It definitely isn't. He's not thinking about the realities of life for gay people at all.
No. Well, he thinks he's get a decent headline out of it.
And it makes him sound woke or makes him sound like he's being supportive. It's done the absolute opposite.
Yeah, typical. Well, you know what, it doesn't... nothing about Gary Lineker surprises me anymore, to be perfectly honest. Now, one thing I always think, Kevin, when and I do think we've got to be careful about fossil fuels and things. I think we need a cleaner planet. Yep. I think we need a planet where we're not going to run out of fuel at some point in 100 years or 200 years or whatever it might be. I'm all for thinking we need to think about things. So I always think to myself, if we need to slow down the use of oil, what better way than tomato soup at a picture?
Absolutely. It's the first thing that you think of. It's so obvious, really. This obviously is a story about the Just Stop Oil campaigners who thought it would be a good idea to throw a couple of tins of tomato soup over a Van Gogh masterpiece. Now, fortunately, it was behind glass, so the painting itself was undamaged. Apparently, the frame was a little bit damaged, but I just couldn't really get my head round what the significance of it was. And also, I think if you are, as you say, I think, pursuing a laudable aim of protecting the planet, you have to be able to take people with you. Yeah. You know, so go ahead and do that. I haven't seen anyone, even people who are, would like to see themselves as environmentally friendly, who think that this was a good idea. All you're going to do
here they go. These people.
It's you're turning people against you, So they don't listen to the good points.
And then they're whipping out the super glue from their bras, so they can then glue themselves to the... Leave them there, I say. Leave them there.
I mean, it's so uncomfortable watching that happen,
Yeah,
isn't it?
you
Because it is an
flinch,
act of
don't you?
vandalism.
It's just vandalism.
And I am absolutely on their side. We absolutely need to sort out the issue with fossil fuels, and I completely believe in the right to protest. But it's just, again, just very tone deaf. It's not taking anyone with them.
I tell you what you do, though, when you look at those, and where, even despite my vitriol, I have a tiniest bit of sympathy, when you look at them, they're children.
Yeah.
They're children. I'd be surprised if either...
Teenagers, aren't they?
I'd be surprised if either of them had hit 20 yet. And children like that don't have a lot of common sense a lot of the time.
Well, you're idealistic, aren't you? Which,
Well, yeah.
which is good.
Which
And we all
is not
go
a
through
bad
that
thing.
phase. You know, it's not a bad thing at all. But yeah, I think maybe in years to come, they maybe will look back on it and think it might not have been the best idea.
I mean, why can't they do something like let a flock of parrots off in Parliament, or I don't know, just something that would be spectacular?
Don't give them
and
any
ridiculous.
ideas now.
No, don't give them any ideas.
Yeah, it's not something as I don't know. I've got so many better ideas and stuff they could do.
Do you know what? I would love to sit in one of the meetings though when they come up with these ideas. I mean, who comes up with that?
It's
Let's go
certainly
to the
random.
National
You wouldn't-
Gallery and throw.
No one would
soup
expect. That's the
at
last
Van Gogh.
thing you would expect.
And apparently the soup was because they're saying, oh, you know, with the situation, families can't even afford a tin of soup.
Oh, right.
But I thought that was wrong because people
that's
who are
basic
poor...
soup.
Well, it's basic soup. Also, people that are poor don't buy branded soup. So they kind of missed a trick
Yeah.
there with that.
Yeah, no, fair point. Nikki, what's this in the Star about answering trunk calls?
Well, I thought we needed a cute animal story because
we do.
we haven't had enough fun today, really. Well, maybe we have.
No, we haven't. No, we definitely haven't.
It's a very, very sweet story. So there's obviously a terrible drought in East Africa at the minute, which is affecting thousands of people, but lots of elephants are being abandoned by their families and their mothers, lots of babies because of the drought. It's really discombobulating the groups of elephants. So this is just the keepers are taking care of the elephants, the baby elephants. There's a cute picture of one of them loading up the enriched milk for the babies, and then one with his arm through the cage, so you can see the little babies like having a moment with them. So it's just
Chuck it here, because for
It's
some
just
for
a
some
nice-
reason unknown to God or man, we haven't uploaded this picture.
If you just want to see
Because-
something
and
heartwarming
And considering this is a picture story, we really should have done. But look at that.
I'll help you.
I love how hairy baby elephants are too. Thank
Look
you.
at that. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Lovely, great.
There's just something about elephants, because obviously they're so powerful, but they're also so gentle and intelligent creatures.
Very intelligent, and it breaks your heart when you see the images of people killing them for their for the ivory. It's horrible, but yeah, they are beautiful, as you say, huge, beautiful, gentle creatures and very intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got time for a bit more, Kevin. A job in a vineyard. I wouldn't trust you in a vineyard. Got to be honest. Got to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't hire you in a month or something.
And you're probably quite right.
Yeah.
So this is a fascinating story that increasing numbers of people edging towards retirement age are quitting the rat race and taking up jobs in vineyards, picking grapes. So it's a lovely little feature of Rathfinney Wine Estate in East Sussex, which has got lots of, I don't want to say elderly, but older people, like former civil servants.
What sort of age are we talking?
Well, David McMaster, 66, from Brighton, gave up his online business to join the harvest and has not looked back in 2019.
You haven't looked up again, I'd be bending over.
Well, it's interesting. These are elderly friendly because they are the grapes are up high, so you don't have to actually bend down to pick them. Helen Thomas from Charleston said she left her bookkeeping job to tend the vines because she was an outside person and she'd worked in an office for 19 years and thought it was time for a change. And another guy's a former civil servant, loves the outdoors, and they're raving about it and they get free wine.
Oh,
do they?
That was a good thing.
Sign me up.
And yeah, they absolutely love it. So
Can't be much money in it, so it's the people who can afford to give up, really.
Well,
There's not going to be a lot of money.
Aye, this is a
hobby job.
You've already made your money. Your pension pot's pretty healthy, I guess, and you just don't need the hassle of office work. So why not just?
It's just a few months a year
Yeah,
of doing it.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it does sound quite idyllic.
It sounds like if the weather's
Yeah.
nice, you know what?
If the weather's
rain
nice.
is,
Yeah.
would you?
If you like the outdoors and you like wine, though,
Yeah, for
good
free
job.
wine.
It's all right, isn't it?
I'm there.
Get a
I'd
couple
do
of
it.
bottles at the end of every shift.
Just get paid in wine.
Yeah.
Quite nice.
Snack on the way, nibble on some grapes.
There we go.
I'm getting really into it.
Drink it on the way home.
Drink it on the way
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's a dream job for most people. Kevin, Nikki, we're out of time. I would say it's been a joy, but, you know.
I know.
And I'm sorry, can I just say, ladies and gents, Nikki did say, because I said to Nikki this morning, you're wearing that dress last time I saw you. She said, well, it's because I can't, nothing fits me because I'm pregnant. And I was like, thank heavens you said you were pregnant. Because you know that awful dilemma you get in.
I know.
But last time you were in, I was thinking, oh.
Is that a bump?
Either she's got a bump or she's put a bit of weight on. I bet I hadn't say anything.
Yeah, well, it's so funny that you said it, because obviously when you do TV, you're like, oh, I need to wear something different. I can't wear what I wore last time. But I'm at the stage where I'm like, nothing fits. I'm running out of outfits.
Oh, you look great. You look
It's
great.
lovely.
Oh, thank
but
you.
Congratulations.
I am so relieved you told me. I think, oh, she's eating more pies.
Well, I am doing that as well, to be fair.
Well, no,
but...
fair enough. Well, you're eating for 2, maybe 3, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one.
Just the one.
Just the one.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, well, you never know.
Oh,
You never know.
Well, it's lovely news, and we need some of that at the moment. So
We do,
congratulations.
we do.
Well done.
There
You got yourself through it.
Isn't that an awful dilemma, though, when you do... Because I know people who have said that to people. Oh, well, when are you due? Congratulations. And they've not been.
Oh, no.
I have known people who do that. It's awful, isn't it?
I've done that once, actually, on the tube. I offered someone a seat. I was trying to be a good person. And it backfired.
It did
Spectacular.
backfire.
And then you're just going to stand there awkwardly looking at each other. It's very awkward.
Well, that's why you need those baby on board badges.
You do. Have you got one of those yet?
That's
No,
always
mine hasn't arrived yet. So I just stand there going, sticking it out.
Sticking it out, yeah.
Give me a seat.
I don't ask anyone now. I don't ask them.
Oh, right. Let's bring you up to date with some of the headlines. It is 8:49.
More than 5 million homes could see their annual mortgage payments rise by over £5,000 between now and the end of 2024. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. It says a fifth of that cost reflects predicted interest rate rises since the mini-budget.
As we were talking about in the papers, the Vincent van Gogh painting at the National Gallery in London is now back on display after being targeted by climate activists. Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of tomato soup over the sunflowers. They were protesting against fossil fuels, so then helpfully glued themselves to the wall. The Met Office says the painting was thankfully undamaged as it's behind glass.
22 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey. The Turkish Interior Minister says over 100 miners were working at the site at the time. The cause of the blast, which caused some areas to collapse, is not yet known.
Now, this is where I always get into trouble, you know, when we talk about The Crown.
Because
I've never seen it.
I'm a big fan.
I've never seen it, but a lot of people are. I mean, it's huge. It is huge. Anyway, if you are a fan, you could very well be patiently waiting for Series 5, which is about to launch on Netflix. But as brilliant as many people think it is, it's easy to forget that it's a drama and not a documentary.
Well, one person who has criticised the show is Lady Victoria Hervey, who says the show will expose the worst aspects of the royal family. And she joins us in the studio now. Well, good morning to you, Lady Victoria. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us why you think this about The Crown.
Well, I mean, so obviously, like, it will probably have the biggest viewers, but because we're going, you know, it's right after the funeral, and it's going to create a lot of new viewers, I think, that maybe would not have watched it before. It's just very insensitive, you know, being so close to after what has just happened with the Queen. And obviously, like, this story now, this season, is actually, like, during our time of when we've actually all been alive and we've all experienced it. So I think it's going to be very raw. It's going to be hard for probably quite a few members of the royal family, things they're not going to want to see. As far as the actors, I don't really think they look that similar to the real.
Well, I suppose it's giving an impression, though, isn't it, of all of that? But it is the point is that a lot of it obviously is dialogue based,
right?
And that dialogue, by the very nature of what we know, has to be invented.
Of course, because they weren't actually there, were they? But that's the problem, because a lot of people really do see this as, you know, they see it and they think this is everything that happened in this actually is real. Obviously, the outline's real. You know, it's got Diana and Dodie and the boat and Saint-Tropez and all of this, but what happens in the middle, they've just completely made up. And a lot of people will watch this and actually believe that it is all real. They don't realise that. They see it as more like everything is correct, and it's not. And this is like kind of an issue about it, because once stories come out there, once it's written, then people believe it.
Do you think that is the case, though? Do you think people sit at home and think they're watching a documentary? Because I think many people would recognise the actors and the actresses, such as Olivia Colman playing the Queen, and you know that's Olivia Colman, you know it's an actress, you know it's a drama series.
Look, I followed The Crown, and it is based on real events that happened. You know, I actually just started rewatching the first one, just because it was, you know, relevant, because it was when the Queen was told that her father had died. And that is all very real. That wasn't made up. That's, you know, she was in Africa. She got the news. It was so. I'm imagining the rest of it will be similar, but they will put some things in the middle. They will have conversations that maybe they didn't happen.
It seems, I mean, look, it's very popular, and so I'm in the minority, and I guess you're probably in the minority too. But I find it very uncomfortable when there's a drama series which is based on people who are still alive.
Still alive. This is the problem. And you know, OK, the Queen has now died, and there's also references to things of the Duke of Edinburgh and his friendships, and it's just very soon after. But obviously, Netflix want to capitalise on it being so soon after, because this is going to have massive viewers for them.
Well, it will do.
And it's also awkward. I mean, on the other side of that is drama series about people that are alive.
Yeah.
You know, we're focusing now on Charles and Camilla, or we will be in the upcoming series. And now we know, obviously, they're our new King and Queen consort.
So it's going to be very awkward.
Do you think we need to just let people get on with it, watch it, and then just you know, so get your message out that it's not real, and and just sort of hope for the best, really? I mean, presumably the Royals aren't watching it.
You know, I think some of them have watched parts. I don't know if they're like glued to the screen of all of it, but they've definitely seen some of it, for sure.
And do you think it is painful? I mean,
It's
don't know.
hard for the boys as well. I think
that.
for Prince William and Harry, they've just been through so much, and it's like, I feel like as soon as it kind of like they get a little break, it's like another one comes and hits them in the face. So yeah, it's going to not be very pleasant for them just to kind of have to rewatch and relive it again.
They don't get a break, do they?
No,
That's
they
the thing. I mean,
don't.
there always seems. I mean, there is an obsession around the world with Diana, but the films and the documentaries and in The Crown, I mean, it's always on the screens for them to watch.
Yeah, and also for Prince Charles and Camilla and having all of that as well. You know, with the coronation coming up in May, and it's not like the best, is it? Like. What they're going to be showing is sort of the worst things that happened, right? Annus Horribilis, that happened in that family with all the divorces that happened.
It's not what you want to sort of air your dirty laundry in public.
But let's see how it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, fingers crossed, it's done sensitively.
Exactly.
But not that it's going to help. If you do ever get to speak to William and things, I don't know if you ever do, but just tell him not to watch. Just don't watch it and ignore the headlines, because it's just not worth putting yourself through it. Lady Victoria, thank you.
Good to meet you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Can I just say, what an outfit.
Yes,
Thank
what
you.
an outfit.
It's
It's amazing.
Are you a
This
fan?
is Elizabeth Emmanuel, and who was obviously who dressed Princess Diana and made her dress, and
Well, it's
I wear her a lot.
And it reminds me very much of Adam and the Ants.
I've heard that, yes.
Huge fan of Adam and the Ants.
I like
Prince
this
Charming.
colour.
It's
Yeah,
fabulous.
I love the collar. Amazing.
Absolutely
really,
marvellous.
really good.
Good to see you.
All right.
Thanks
Look,
so much.
don't go anywhere. We've got all the headlines coming up after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today, most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow, but so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening, and we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade, and actually much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures, but generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off, so most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
The way we are delivering our mission right now has to change.
Another U-turn on the mini-budget and another Chancellor gone. But has Liz Truss done enough to keep her own job?
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock on Saturday the 15th of October. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Ellie.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online. So wherever you are and whatever you're up to in this next hour, don't forget to take us with you.
Here are your top stories this morning. Former Foreign Secretary and leadership contender Jeremy Hunt has been named Chancellor, the fourth in as many months. Mr Kwarteng was sacked yesterday despite working with the PM on their shared economic vision.
It's been exactly a year since the MP David Amess was stabbed at his constituency surgery in Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. So we're asking, has there been any improvement to MP's safety since his death?
From gentle giant Hagrid to crime psychologist Fitz, actor Robbie Coltrane has died, aged 72. We'll be paying tribute to the Scottish actor, described by Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling as a complete one-off.
Loads of you getting in touch. In fact, I'll just read one out now.
Yeah, let's do something. We keep saying we're going to come to it.
Just because I've only just seen it, just at the corner of my eye. John says, because we're talking about youngsters, the people who've stuck themselves to the walls and things, the stop oil people. How dare you say most teenagers have no common sense? I have two wonderful teenage grandchildren, and they would no more think of doing what these stupid two have done than flying through the air. Not fair on the young. And do you know what, John? You are absolutely right. I was saying it as a bit of jest, but no, it's quite right. You shouldn't all label all young people as being daft, because they are not. So actually, John, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one.
And Steve says, stop oil protesters. They are not children. They are vandals. Simple as that, says Steve.
Fair point. Keep your thoughts coming through. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Well, our main news this morning, and the Prime Minister yesterday, as you will now be aware, sacked the Chancellor, Kwarteng, and replaced him with former Secretary of State, Jeremy Hunt.
Well, as financial markets remain in turmoil, Liz Truss says she accepts that her government's plans for unfunded tax cuts had gone further and faster than investors were expecting.
Well, admitting that she needed to change course, the Prime Minister maintained her commitment towards her economic plan for growth.
I have acted decisively today because my priority is ensuring our country's economic stability. As Prime Minister, I will always act in the national interest. This is always my first consideration. I want to be honest, this is difficult, but we will get through this storm, and we will deliver the strong and sustained growth that can transform the prosperity of our country for generations to come.
Well, let's speak to our political reporter, Catherine Forster, who's in Downing Street for us this morning. I mean, the Prime Minister says she's maintaining her vision for growth, but she's just scrapped, done a U-turn on the main element of the budget that was meant to create growth. So what's she talking about?
Yes, she absolutely has. And of course, she's also ditched her Chancellor and ideological bedfellow, Kwarteng. So today, the new Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has been out on the airwaves. He is sounding very different indeed. There is a real change of tone coming from him. He is saying, there are very difficult decisions ahead. They're aiming for growth with stability. Remember, we heard of disruption from Kwarteng and Liz Truss. Liz Truss dropped that language yesterday because the disruption has been far more than anyone could have imagined. But Jeremy Hunt is now saying some taxes will have to go up. And indeed, he will be asking all departments to make efficiency savings across the board. Read that effectively as cuts to public services. Now, Liz Truss only the other day said that absolutely public spending would be rising. So already her whole policy, her whole agenda seems to be effectively torn apart, which then begs the question, what is the point of Liz Truss if most of what she stands for has been taken away? Now, Jeremy Hunt will have to outline his medium-term fiscal plan, which will be accompanied with an assessment from the Office for Budget Responsibility on the 31st of October. Who knows, that may be sufficient to calm the markets, but what of the Conservative MPs? Many of them are deeply unhappy with the Prime Minister's performance. They feel that Kwarteng was only part of the problem and that the fundamental issue is that the Prime Minister is out of line and out of step with what the markets and the public, and indeed many of them, expect and want to see from her. So her position this weekend is far, far from clear going forward.
OK, Catherine, thank you.
Well, the former Labour Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Peter Dowd, joins us on the line now. Good morning to you, Peter. Now, what do you make, first of all, of Kwasi Kwarteng being sacked yesterday morning, flying back from Washington? The paper's reporting he had absolutely no idea that he was going to be sacked. But many people saying this was her budget as much as it was his. And is it right that he was the fall guy?
Well, I think both of them should be the fall guy. I'm not concerned about the personal circumstances of the Prime Minister or the former Chancellor. I'm concerned about the difficulty their policies have got the country in. We're already in a pretty grim situation. 7 million people on NHS waiting lists, local authorities' budgets slashed by 50%. Now Jeremy Hunt saying they're going to be slashed even further. I'm not concerned about their political life, so to speak. I'm concerned about how their policies are affecting and impacting upon the lives of thousands and thousands of people in my constituency and millions right across the country. And just final point, they knew this was going to happen. They were warned about this 3-4 weeks ago, and they just went ahead in this inappropriate and outrageous way.
I mean, there has been an acknowledgement that perhaps, as the Prime Minister said last night, this went further and faster than the markets were willing to take. But the fundamental goal was all, and admittedly, that's clearly going to change because of the U-turn, but fundamentally, it's about creating growth. And without growth in our economy, we're not going to be able to help everyone across the whole spectrum of this country, but particularly those people who are most in need. A growing economy is what we need.
Well, yes, but there's 2 points in relation to that one. We've had 12 years of this government, and they've had the lowest growth virtually, for many of those years in the group of 7 at all our economic competitors. So the policies that they've been pursuing since George Osborne have maintained these levels of low growth. So the idea that you just continue what's been happening for the past 12 years seems to me to be quite silly to continue to do that. It's daft to continue to do what you've done for the past 12 years and, in fact, bear down on it. Why would you do that? I think there has to be a complete change of approach to the economy. And the other thing is, they always call about these fiscal rules. Well, the Conservative government have had 10 fiscal rules. They've broken all 10 of them. And this is the latest approach that has been trashed. So they've got a history of these, we're going to do this, do that, and actually never deliver. And growth is lower than ever. Productivity of workers in the country is significantly less than our French and German counterparts. And there's absolutely nothing that the Tories have been doing for the past 5 or 10 years that's going to do anything to change that. So more of the same is not an option.
Yeah, but the problem... Sorry, Andy, I was going to say the problem is with this, Peter, right? You say, as every Labour Party member does, well, let's bring on the general election. Let's bring in the changes. All right, perhaps there's an appeal to that. There's no guarantee that whatever Keir Starmer and whoever he puts in as Chancellor is going to make, actually, the slightest bit of difference. And if it doesn't, well, you just turn around and say, well, actually, that's not our fault. It's the fault of the last administration.
No, because what you've got to have is sustained levels of investment, both private and public levels of investment in our public services and our public infrastructure as well. That's the way to get growth, sustained levels of growth, long-term, patient growth in the economy, where the private sector and the public know that you're going to be investing X amount in the economy year on year. It's not going to be cut in 2 years' time. It's not going to be a pullback on with fiscal retrenchment and changes to our monetary policy, which does confuse the markets. What you've got to have is a sustained level of investment over the years so people know where they are. Sustained levels of investment in the NHS. As I said before, 7 million people on a waiting list with best part of 10% of the NHS workforce vacant. They're the sort of things that you've got to tackle in that wider sense. It isn't just about digits and figures and percentages at the end of a statement. It's about the substance of what you do, how you want to invest, what sort of country that you want. And finally, in relation to the issue about growth, I'm not against growth as long as the growth is sustainable, but it's no good growing the pie if the pie just goes to all the people who've already got it. That's the road to nowhere.
Peter, I wanted to ask you about your comment earlier about a change in approach and needing a change in approach. And wouldn't you say that what Liz Truss did yesterday in hiring Jeremy Hunt and sacking Kwasi Kwarteng was exactly that, a change in approach? I mean, Jeremy Hunt was a Rishi Sunak supporter. He's no fan of Trussonomics. I mean, he's coming from a completely different angle. Isn't that not exactly what we need at this moment?
Well, I don't think they are particularly coming from a different angle. I think what Liz Truss was doing was just sort of trying to rip up the rule book, which, as I said, they'd broken every time anyway, so there's not much change there. You have to have a different approach, and that different approach is what I've just said. It's about, is the new Chancellor going to invest in our infrastructure in partnership, for example, with the private sector? And I don't see any substantive change in Jeremy Hunt's approach. And as I've just said, the first thing he's saying is that government departments have got to be more efficient. Well, local authorities have been working for 12 years with cuts of massively. I mean, at what point do you accept that you can't have any more efficiency in a service that is already under the cosh? And it's the same with our roads. The investment in our roads, in our railways, they're in a complete mess. Cutting back on them, paring back on them in one fashion or other, isn't going to make it any better. It's just going to make it worse.
The government's being criticised for unfunded spending. When you're talking about huge amounts of capital investment, well, you say, in partnership with the private sector, but to what level, we don't know. I mean, aren't you basically talking about what is currently unfunded capital expenditure?
No, I'm not. See, the whole point that the Labour Party did and has been doing is effectively say we will borrow to invest. We won't borrow to pay the daily bills, and that's what the government have been doing for the past 12 years. They've borrowed more money virtually than all other governments in history. They virtually doubled our national debt. And for what? The country's still in a mess. We've still got the lowest levels of productivity virtually across Europe. Our inequality levels across Europe are the worst, virtually the worst in Western Europe. Our investment is the worst. I mean, how many times do I have to say that, and I've said this to the government, before they realise that their policies are not directed appropriately? They've got all this debt for what? Low productivity levels, low growth, inequality in our public services, a 7 million waiting list for the NHS, our environmental standards plummeting. How much more do they have to actually be told this isn't working?
Peter Dowd, well, it's really good to get your perspective. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. And let us know what you think about the current turmoil in Downing Street and in government, and perhaps what you think about what Peter Dowd's saying, what the opposition's saying about all of this. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
And I will just bring you this email who has just come in from Eddie. Good morning to you, Eddie. He says, good morning. Is it just me, or does it seem that the reason they're going after Liz Truss is because she didn't go to Eton and didn't only experience real life through books?
Oh, I think that's a bit cynical, Eddie.
Yeah.
It's a bit cynical.
Do let us know, and do let us know what you think. We've got lots of you getting in touch, and we will share lots of them in the next few minutes. But for now, let's bring you up to date with the other stories that are going on today. More than 5 million homes could see their annual mortgage payments rise by just over £5,000 between now and the end of 2024. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. It says a fifth of that cost reflects predicted interest rate rises since the mini-budget.
A Vincent van Gogh painting at the National Gallery is back on display after it was targeted by climate activists. Just Stop Oil campaigners threw cans of soup over the sunflowers to protest against fossil fuels. Then they glued themselves to the wall. The Met Office says the painting was undamaged as it's behind glass.
22 people have been killed in an explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey. The Turkish Interior Minister says over 100 miners were working on the site at the time. The cause of the blast, which caused some areas to collapse, is not yet known.
The TV and film star Robbie Coltrane has died at the age of 72. He won 3 BAFTAs for playing Fitz in the fantastic 90s TV drama Cracker. He's also, of course, known as Hagrid in Harry Potter. Loads of stars have paid tribute, most of them acknowledging that he was exceptional. Talking of those protests, actually, at the National Gallery, Tony says, why give these yobs airtime? It's just what they crave, publicity. Far better to ignore them. And you know what? I sort of get your point,
Yeah.
Tony, to be fair.
And do you know what? On so many of the news websites yesterday, it was either the top read story or the second. So, I mean, they're achieving their aim in that sense.
Want.
Getting on, yeah, it's exactly what they want. And we're giving them to it and say, OK, here we go. I'm being bossed around here. This is Stephen, not you.
Not
Somebody
me.
else. Morning, Stephen. These children have been indoctrinated at university and will probably be either politicians or media presenters in the future. Oh, dear.
I do, yeah. I mean, who knows what they'll turn out to
Yeah.
be? Hopefully they'll be able to think a little bit more rather than just throw stuff about, which I think is, part of the problem. We're also talking in the papers about people who, have decided to give up the retirement age people who've sort of given up work and are picking grapes in wherever it was.
A vineyard in West Sussex, I think.
Was it West Sussex?
Something
That was
like that,
it.
yeah. Looked nice.
Which there's not a bad way to do it if you can afford to do it, because there's been no money in it. Ian said, I had a stroke 2 years ago and could no longer carry on with my small accountancy practice, so I've retrained as a dry stone waller. I'm slow but cheap. And I tell you what, Ian, though, that's a real lovely skill. A good dry stone wall. That's so beautiful, actually. It is a real skill.
I love those kind of stories, don't you?
Yeah.
When people later on in life just go and do something else.
I'd love
a passion.
I'd love
What would you do?
I've no idea. I don't know, but I'd love a dry stone wall all round the garden.
Oh, right.
Half of my idea to get in touch with you. Still costs me.
Ian, you can expect a phone call after this show.
I'll tell you
I
what,
think.
it'd be a lovely thing to have. I don't know what sort of foundations you need to put on the dry stone wall. If any, maybe none
Ask
at all.
Ian.
Ooh, Ian.
Yeah.
Ian.
And Stephen, you've got people talking about driving tests. How do we even get into driving tests? Oh, we're talking about U-turns. It turned into a big conversation about
It's
driving
Aidan
tests.
McGee's fault.
Aidan McGee, as always, getting us off topic. But it got people talking. Look, John says, I took my driving test in 1994 at 8 a.m. in Morden, London. And I got stuck in a traffic jam with all the kids going to school. So my whole hour was eaten up in traffic jams and I got a pass.
Oh, that's nice.
That's a nice, easy way to pass your test.
That's nice. But Jill's with me. Morning, Jill. She says, I passed my driving test first time in 1991, like Stephen. Doesn't it make you feel old when your driving licence is older than some of your work friends? Yes, it does. It does make you feel very, very old. The only advantage I've got in my driving licence is it always looks new because I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have a restricted licence, so I have to have it renewed every 3 years. The doctor has to sign off on it. So I've just got my new one, actually, the other day. And so at least I've always got a bright, shiny new driving licence rather than a clapped-out old one.
Yeah.
But yes.
Can you still have paper ones, or
No,
is it
they've
all
gone
on the
now.
cards now?
They've gone now.
I remember my mum just whipping out her big paper thing. It's
Yeah,
a long
great
document,
big
isn't it?
green
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, you never
She's
used...
got a card now, but
Yeah, you never used to have cards back in the olden days.
back in the olden days.
No,
yeah.
all right for you.
It took me
youngsters.
3 times to pass my driving
Did it?
test.
3?
Yeah, God. I don't know how I passed the 3rd time. I did a reverse around the corner, you know that manoeuvre?
Oh, yeah.
And I grazed the corner the whole time. I was like, oh, gosh, here we go. Another fail, but I think he took pity on me.
I thought I was doomed because on my lesson before the test, I didn't. There was a lady with who pushed a pram right out across the zebra crossing.
Oh no!
Just they do just without thinking, and it was the instructor slammed on the brakes, and I thought,
oh
this is
no!
what I'm doing. And that was just before we got to the test centre, and then I did actually pass the test. So I think it was maybe the shock I needed.
Oh, well done. Always good
There
to be
you go.
aware of your surroundings.
Oh,
but no,
dear.
do keep in contact with any of the stories that we were talking about today. It's always good to hear from you. So gbnews@gbnews.uk. It's on the screen there.
Talking about age, time flying by, I think it's always a bit of a shocker when we hit memorials. And it's 1 year today since the Conservative MP, Sir David Amess, was killed. He was stabbed more than 20 times during a constituency surgery.
Now, 12 months on, his friends and family are reflecting on his legacy. And there's a conversation about whether enough has been done to keep MPs safe.
Well, let's talk to the leader of the Conservative group on Southend Council, Tony Cox, who joins us now. Tony, it's really good to see you this morning. And it is remarkable to think that this wonderful, kind and generous man has been gone for a year now. But, I mean, tell us, if you would, because I think it's really important when we look back on these tragic events to remember who Sir David was and what impact he had on his area.
Sir David was just Mr. Southend. There's nothing really more than a finer tribute that anyone could give. Everybody he came in contact with, nobody had a bad word to say about him. He championed projects that were never seen fashionable at the time, or brought them to the national conscience. I think the campaign on endometriosis, for one, being an example. He was also a great exponent here locally, and I think today's memorial that we'll be doing for him is the most fitting. You know, he was quite passionate with then Queen's tree canopy, increasing the number of trees, and I think it's fitting that today we'll be doing a tree planting memorial for Sir David. I think today will be a day of sober reflection. What people say to me more than, as I said, more than anything, certainly over this last week, has it really been a year? Now, one of the things that Sir David's greatest passions was for Southend to become a city and get city status, and even that in a strange way this year, bearing in mind it was bestowed upon us by Her Majesty the Queen. Then it was presented to us by now King Charles. And even the passing of the Queen brought back memories during this past year. There was also, as well, the ordeal that the family and everybody had to go through with the trial. But I think today it'll be a tough day, but I think it'll be a day of reflection.
Yes, and Tony, I was actually at the scene on this day last year in Leigh-on-Sea, and I was really struck by the community there who were talking to me about Sir David, and they were saying, you know, they were voting on all sides of the political spectrum, but they loved Sir David for the man that he was and how much of a people person he was. He knew so many of them by name. He would pop into the shop, he would spend time with them, genuinely seemed interested in their lives. How is the community feeling now, a year on, and what are their memories of him?
The memories of him are exactly just that, of being a good champion of local causes, helping residents on whatever the cause across any divide. He knew everybody by name, as you say, and it will be tough. And also as well, I think in this, as part of the memory, I think there also has to be some reflection on the work that Anna Firth has done to take on what was a completely, unprecedented situation here in Southend, a very difficult time, and to have also kept the memory of Sir David going and championed some of the causes that Sir David did to still keep his memory alive. And I think on that, I don't think that should go unnoticed as well, as we pay reflection to Sir David, that his memory will still continue in that respect as well.
Thing to lose someone who is respected, never mind loved by his own family and friends, but respected by a community in such dreadful circumstances. But do you feel, a year on, Tony, that this is a day where actually you can celebrate not someone's loss, but someone's contribution to your society?
I think it's both, because I think on a time like this I've lost a colleague. I lost a friend, and many of my colleagues will find it very difficult. But certainly at this time, residents lost, as I say, Mr. Southend. But what we can't forget is a wife lost a husband and children lost a father.
And that is, as you say, that's the most important thing, really. Look, Tony, it's really good to talk to you this morning. It's good to get your reflections on this. And as I say, I think Sir David, one of those few politicians, few people in the world who was sort of universally loved and liked by people who met him, and that's a wonderful legacy to leave behind. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're right, though. I think politicians across the board just spoke so highly of him last year. Wes Streeting, Labour MP, also from Essex, came down and laid flowers and just said he was a really, really good friend of mine. So and that must be quite rare in Westminster. So it's a great, great loss. And if you are in South End West, do get in touch with, perhaps if you're going down to one of the memorials. I know there's several events taking place today, and how you will remember Sir David Amess. Do get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.uk. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Look, don't go anywhere. We've got lots more coming up for you after we've had a look at the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today, most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England and Scotland, slowly pulling away to the northeast. Some sunshine will follow, but so will a whole host of showers for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. More showers to come across Wales, the Midlands and southwest England. East Anglia, the southeast, may not see too many showers till late in the day, and some good spells of sunshine this afternoon over northeast England and eastern Scotland. A cool day in the north, 12 or 13 at best. Further south, we might get up to 16 or 17, but blustery, especially on these western coasts. A pretty gusty wind, which will continue to bring showers in this evening, and we'll continue with showers right across the northern half of the country through the night. Some showers in the southeast, but they'll tend to fade, and actually much of England and Wales will become dry as we go through the early hours. A cooler night here as well compared to last night. Temperatures in some rural spots well down into single figures, but generally a dry and a bright day on Sunday. We'll start with a few showers over northern England and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly they should tend to fade away. And even across Scotland, I suspect the showers will tend to ease off, so most places dry and bright through Sunday afternoon. With a bit of sunshine, temperatures again getting up in the south to 16 or 17 Celsius, further north 13 or 14. Probably feeling a bit warmer than today because the winds will be lighter, at least initially. But notice the winds picking up in the southwest, and out here there is a developing, intensifying area of low pressure. That is going to spread wet and windy weather across Northern Ireland during Sunday evening and across many western areas during Sunday night.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
struggling up to me this morning. Are you cold or something? It's all about body heat.
Yeah,
It's all
dude.
about
We
body
need it.
heat.
Cost of living. The studio is not
I know
warm.
you should have worn long sleeves.
I know, well, I never do I? Look, what am I doing now?
Mic cables
mic's
stripping.
falling.
Honestly, you can't
What's
get
going
this.
on? I'm falling off the chair. Now the mic, thank you.
It's terrible. I've had a right morning with her.
I know.
Anyway, this is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie. Good morning to you. It is 9:32.
Thanks for your company. Right, more than 5 million households are predicted to see their annual mortgage payments rise on an average of £5,100 between now and the end of 2024.
The increase seen as a direct consequence of the mini-budget, or at least 20% of it is. Let's talk to property expert Richard Blanco, who's here. Morning to you.
Good morning.
Oh, you're all smiles, but these are grim figures, Richard.
I'm trying to cheer you up.
These are grim figures. So what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, this is really about Bank of England base rates going up. So we were expecting it to go up to kind of 3 or 4% next summer, but it now looks like it's likely to go up to 6%. And this is a direct consequence, really, of the mini budget that we saw a couple of weeks ago. So, of course, you know, the rates that we pay on our mortgages are connected to what happens to bank base rate. Also, the fixed rates, which lots of people are on, are connected to the swap rates, and the swap rates have kind of been going up considerably. They're around about 5% now for a 2-year or 5-year fix, and that converts into a 6% mortgage rate that we would pay.
So what's the difference then monthly? Because, I mean, we have been very lucky in a sense that they have been historically low, haven't they? But, I mean, looking at 5-6% now is a huge jump monthly, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will be on kind of 2 or 3% fixed rates at the moment. So you're looking at the interest that you're paying doubling, really. Now, that's not the whole mortgage payment doubling, because people will be paying back some of the capital. So some of the element of the mortgage is capital, some of it is interest. But the interest element will be doubling. So people could easily be paying sort of £400 or £500 a month more, you know, on a typical sort of £200,000 or £300,000 mortgage.
Is it very? We're talking about what could happen by the end of 2024, right? With some of these figures, which are pretty scary. However, there's a problem with that, as we know. We don't know what's going to be happening by the end of 2024, because although they're basing this on what's happening now, what is very clear is the status quo is not going to be there. You know, it's going to be changing either with different people in charge, whether it's different Conservative government or a new Labour government. So it's all going to change anyway.
It is. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's political uncertainty. There's the war in Ukraine, and that's affecting energy prices. So should the war in Ukraine end earlier than we expect, and who knows when it's going to end, then energy prices could come down. That could mean that inflation comes down, and so the Bank of England don't have to put interest rates up as much. So I guess we're all crossing our fingers, really, that might happen, and that could sort of save the day. I'm being optimistic, because I've got a number of fixed-rate mortgages that are coming to an end next year. So I'm kind of hoping that Bank of England base rates will only go up to kind of 4.5% around that sort of zone. But, you know, that's not what the markets are predicting at the moment.
Because is there going to be a limit on how high interest rates can go? Because lots of people are saying, you know, look, in the 80s and 90s it was as high as something like 12%, wasn't it? I mean, it was
17%
17% at one point. Wasn't live, sorry.
No,
but now property is so much more expensive, isn't it? I mean, we're looking at £500,000 properties now, and 17% on that is huge amounts of money. I mean, it simply wouldn't be affordable for so many people.
Yes, I mean, I don't think we should scare people too much. We're not expecting rates to go to 17%. And, you know, that was a bit of a blip, really, that we saw at the beginning of the 90s. And that was when the Chancellor was in charge of interest rates. Now the Bank of England is in charge. It tends to be fairly cautious. And it's, you know, there's lots of research that happens, and, you know, it makes very well-informed decisions that are not politically affected, so they're quite neutral. So, you know, I think higher than 6 or 7% looks unlikely at the moment, so people shouldn't get too concerned. And, you know, everyone is expecting inflation to fall back again next year to, you know, 4 to 5%. It's currently at around about 10 to 11%. So fingers crossed that should happen.
So it's hope that this hike will be short-lived.
Yes, the important point, actually, Ellie, is that we expect rates to peak next summer and then start to come down again. So the dilemma for a lot of people is, should I fix now, or should I just go onto a variable rate for a few months and wait until rates come down? And that's what I'm going to do. But, you know, people should definitely seek advice from a mortgage broker that's regulated by the FCA, you know, to get proper advice.
Yeah, so ask before you jump on all these sort of things, really.
Definitely, yes. Yeah.
OK, Richard, we need... Oh, go on, have you got a
One
quick
more,
one?
one more. We can sneak one more in. And for people who are looking to get a mortgage, I mean, affordability criteria is probably going to change as well, isn't it?
It has. We've seen stress tests really go up. So, for example, in the buy-to-let market, the stress test used to be 5.5%. It's gone up to 8.49% with one of the biggest lenders. So it's going to be harder to get a mortgage. And certainly, anecdotally, we're seeing a lot of people who are considering buying kind of pulling out and deciding that they're going to wait and see.
Okay. Priced out.
Richard,
a lot.
Good to, well, Richard. I was going to say good to talk to you. I don't know that it was, frankly.
There was a glimmer of hope.
You know,
there was a glimmer of hope
in there. Thank you very much
Richard,
indeed.
thank you so much. Great to have you in the studio.
Don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more still to come for you, including we're looking at those tributes to the actor Robbie Coltrane, who's died at 72.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good morning to you. It's 9:40. We're trying to start your day with a smile this morning because there's not always a lot to smile about at the moment. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Now tonight, the biggest fight in women's British boxing history is taking place at London's O2 Arena. And all eyes will be on English boxers Savannah Marshall and the American fighter Clarissa Shields.
Yeah, it's the first televised all-women's professional boxing programme in Britain, and it has been 10 years in the making.
Our supporter went to find out more.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the historic first all-women's card in the history of boxing.
The tense rivalry between Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields has been going on for a decade, ever since the two first boxed in the opening stages of the Amateur World Championships. Clarissa Shields suffered the only loss in her career, a loss she still disputes. For Savannah Marshall, it was a victory, and she became only the second English boxer ever to take the world amateur title. But now both women are competing professionally as part of the first all-women's boxing card in Britain, with 9 women fighting it out at a sold-out O2 Arena. To promote the fight, the boxers took to the Thames, and I was on board.
Women's boxing has certainly come a long way. It was only in 1996 that the Amateur Boxing Association of England finally lifted its 116-year ban on female fighters. But it wasn't until the London Olympics in 2012 that Team GB finally got an all-female team of boxers. And Saturday's fight is certainly making history.
Savannah Marshall has been a pioneer in women's boxing and says the sport has dramatically changed from when she started.
When I first went to the boxing gym, no one wanted me there. The lads didn't want me there. The coaches didn't want me there. But I wanted to be there, and that was the only thing that mattered to me.
And on Saturday, I mean, it's going to be completely packed, hopefully with lots of young women who kind of want to do what you do and have been inspired by you. I mean, how does it feel knowing you're such a trailblazer?
I don't think it's hit me yet. Ask me after Saturday.
Former professional boxer Spencer Oliver says the rivalry between Savannah and Clarissa will make tonight's fight even more significant.
That's sort of always been at the front of the women's sport. You know, these two girls have had this rivalry and they come to heads now at the O2, in front of a packed-out O2 arena. So it's a monumental moment for women's sport, but it's a special moment. These girls have history, and I think that's what makes this fight so special.
While tonight may be the first all-female boxing card in Britain, it certainly won't be the last. Alice Porter, GB News.
Wow, it's going to be quite something. Aidan McGee, thankfully, is here with all of this. This is a real moment of history, Aidan.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's the first, as Alice said, it's the first all-female boxing card, really terrific undercard as well. You've got 11 fights in total, 22 women on the card tonight at the O2, 20,000 people there as well. But for a little bit more insight, a little bit more context, I want to bring in the boxing promoter, Ben Shalom. Ben, if I can invite you to discuss tonight's event, just put it into some kind of context for us, because, as I say, we've never seen these kind of numbers before for a female boxing fight, and we've also have to consider that as recently as 1998, professional boxing for women was illegal in this country.
Yeah, Aidan, good morning. It's crazy to think where we have come. It was 10 years ago when women were first allowed in the Olympics in boxing, and that was 2012. To be here 10 years later, you know, it's okay trying to promote the sport, it's okay trying to get broadcasters and sponsors to invest in the sport, but the interest you cannot manufacture. 20,000 people in the O2 for an all-women's card. Over 100 countries are broadcasting the event. We expect it to be the biggest and most viewed Sky Sports fight night we've ever had. And it's testament to where the sport has come. It's taken on a life of its own, and it comes with great rivalries. All sports need great rivalries, as you know, Aidan, whether it's tennis, whether it's F1, whether it's football. That's what transcends the sport. And now we have a yin and a yang personality type. We've got Clarissa Shields, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, 12-time world champion, almost like the Floyd Mayweather of women's boxing, against our very own Savannah Marshall, who has just taken on this sort of stature of a local hero, of a national hero now that just is so popular. Everything is made for this night. It's going to go down in boxing folklore. The undercard, as you said, has 7 Olympians on, also has Lauren Price on, a gold medalist in Tokyo, MBE now. It's an incredible time. After everything that's been going perhaps wrong in the sport, this is something we can be so proud of, because it's something extremely special and something no one could have imagined even just a few years ago.
That's my next question, actually, Ben. Boxing needs this, doesn't it? Because it's had a difficult couple of weeks. We had the unedifying scenario of Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, all the fiasco of the failed drugs test and the promoter's attempts to try and get the fight on. And this comes at quite a good time, because it can be a feel-good story that brings boxing back into the minds for good reasons.
Yeah, for me, there's no better sport than boxing. It's the truest sport once you get in the ring. It's the one with the most integrity. It takes the hardest work. It's so diverse. It gives anyone an opportunity from anywhere. And now we're seeing that in its truest sense. You know, there's a lot of women's sport now coming to the forefront and in varying degrees of success in different sports. But to think that this is boxing, to think that this is sometimes seen as an intimidating sport, sometimes seen as events that maybe not everyone would go to, this is so special for the sport. We're seeing 35% of our ticket buyers on Saturday night are women. To think that that's going on in boxing, it's very, very special. And as you say, after the events of last week that were so damaging and was such a difficult thing for the sport, this shows how great boxing can be if it's done right and if it's done properly. And this is elite championship boxing where the best are fighting the best in their primes and in a healthy environment, in a safe environment, and that's all we can ask for.
Just a quick one, Ben, because we're running out of time. Has it been worth the last 10 years of your life getting all this up and running?
Without a doubt. I mean, as I say, even if I was told a few years ago that we would sell out the O2 with an all-women's card, I would have laughed with you. Maybe even your call, I'd have laughed at you. I cannot believe that we're sat here broadcasting this many countries. We have 100 people over from ESPN in the States. It's such a big deal over there as well. It's an incredible spectacle. It makes everything worth it. And I think everyone needs to tune in tonight. Sky Sports main event, Sky Sports Showcase. It's there for everyone to see, and it's going to be spectacular.
That's been a heck of an achievement. Ben, thank you very much indeed. Aidan, good to see you this morning as well.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed. Don't shift out. I don't know if we're moving you out to swap Stephanie in or not, whether we're going to pop her on the other end. I'm not entirely sure. We'll work that out, though, because she's going to be here in just a second to talk about Robbie Coltrane, who has died at the age of 72.
Now, he was best known for detective drama Cracker, Bond movies like GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough, as well, of course, as the much-loved character Hagrid in Harry Potter.
Yeah, and here he is giving one of the last interviews that he ever gave, talking about that larger-than-life giant.
I just think it's an end of an era. It's 10 years of my life, and my children have grown up during it, of course.
That is Robbie Coltrane, finest gamekeeper in Hogwarts, last day on Harry Potter.
The legacy of the movies is that my children's generation will show them to their children. So you could be watching it in 50 years' time. Easy. I'll not be here, sadly, but... Don't you think on it for 1 minute. But Hagrid will. Yes.
It's wonderful, isn't it? I mean, Steph is here, and Steph, I mean, that you can really tell how much that role actually meant to him.
He was in all 8 films of Harry Potter, and, you know, just watching that is really quite haunting because, you know, what he's saying is, like, the legacy of that character, it spans so many generations, both from adults to children, and children who'll be watching it in the next 10 to 20 years, they're going to know about Robbie Coltrane, but obviously for our generation, we know him well from... you know, Cracker, Nuns on the Run, and there's so many. He's just got this wealth of work that is just there, and it's to be respected. And, you know, with all the tributes that have come from people who've worked with him, it's just, we have lost a unique talent in the showbiz industry.
We have, and it's an entire generation who are actually adults now, really remarkable, who are going to think about Hagrid.
Yeah.
But even before that, I mean, his wealth of work, as you say, was remarkable. I mean, I mean, for me, it was the grittiness of Fitz and Cracker.
It is, and that's why, rightly so, he won 3 BAFTAs in 3 consecutive years for Best Actor for that role. It was a very groundbreaking role, and if anything, I would like to say it kind of led the way for detective roles on TV, you know, with those kind of characters like the Luthers of today. You know, those are the kind of detectives who are quite controversial, but we still love them anyway.
Yeah, the really, really gritty stuff.
Such a testament to his talent, though, isn't it? I mean, that kind of repertoire, to be a detective in Cracker and then to be this lovable giant in Harry Potter.
Well, that's what he was, Ellie. He was a larger-than-life character, both on-screen and off-screen. And I think when we lose these showbiz greats, you forget them for a while, and when they die, you realise, oh, my gosh, I remember them and that and that and that, and then you realise of what chapter has come to an end. But the movies still live on, and his acting work will still live on.
It certainly will. Steph, thank you, darling.
Thank you, guys.
Really
Enjoy your
good to see you.
Saturday.
Let's just very quickly bring you up to date with a couple of headlines. And as we've been talking about, more than 5 million homes could see their annual mortgage payments rise by more than £5,000 by the end of 2024, according to the Resolution Foundation. It's saying certainly some of that is down to the mini-budget.
Vladimir Putin says Russia should be finished calling up reservists in the next 2 weeks. It'll end a divisive mobilisation that's seen thousands of men summoned to fight in Ukraine. Putin also said Russia has no plans for now for more airstrikes like those it carried out this week, which fired more than 100 long-range missiles at targets across Ukraine.
And a Vincent van Gogh painting at the National in London is back on display after being targeted by climate activists from Just Stop Oil. They threw tomato soup over the portrait and then glued themselves to the wall. Now, it's been with great pride over the past few months that we, before it started and during, we talked to war veteran Paul Minter, because he has undertaken the most remarkable challenge. He's one of the founders of the Head Up charity, looking at actually mental health within the armed forces and for veterans, supporting them. But the reason I'm smiling is he set himself off on a challenge to run 5,000 miles around the UK, the whole length and breadth of the UK, all around the coastline. And do you know what? He's only gone and completed it now, and he's here once again in the studio. Oh, Paul! I mean, when you set off, we said you were crackers, and I've been following you, as we have all been doing, every single day where you've run. In effect, you know, the best part of a marathon, pretty much, every single day. For how long has it taken?
For 7 months, actually. So, on average, I was covering 29.6 miles 6 days a week.
How on earth has it been?
It's really easy to sit back now and go, it was really good, but it was tough. I was completely unsupported apart from the generosity of the public all around the UK. So running around the coastlines of England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Isle of Wight and Isle of Man. Thousands of people getting involved, giving talks, speaking to universities and schools and military establishments and businesses, having business meetings full of charity. And it's been absolutely fantastic. But it was tough, I'm not going to lie.
Paul, what kept you going? I mean, 29 miles a day on average, 6 days a week for 7 months. I mean, that must have been such an epic journey of highs and lows. What mentally kept you going?
There were plenty of highs and lows, mainly highs, I'd like to say. But the purpose behind the run, you know, whilst I was in the armed forces for 18 years, the last few years, I lost quite a lot of friends who took their lives, unfortunately. And even when I started my run in the first few months, I lost another 3 more friends. And the purpose behind it, to get the word out there, to talk about the charity, let people know who we are, how they can use our services. But also, because we're developing a retreat, we're trying to get some brand awareness and some funding as well. So the purpose was very strong for me.
I mean, it's important, isn't it? Because it's about taking the shame away for a lot of this, isn't it? And understanding that actually, whether you're in the armed forces or you've been a veteran, actually asking for help is not a bad thing, because you lot go through some stresses and strains that the rest of us, frankly, even if you're just sort of in training or just out of training, that the rest of us do not go through.
Absolutely. And life, as we all know, is tough for everyone. Financially, family, socially, everything. And not putting a victim card on armed forces personnel at all, because we don't want that, we don't need it. But we have to do stuff on a battlefield, and we have to be battle ready. We have to have a warrior mindset. And to get someone to that state, you have to be put through some vigorous training and put into a certain mindset. But the problem that doesn't happen after that is you don't get brought back down again. So you're always flying high, and that can cause all sorts of problems. And it's not a problem to say, look, I need to calm myself back down. I'm suffering with anger problems. I'm frustrated. It's all very common stuff for the training that we go through in the armed forces.
Look, it's been a joy to be able to help publicise what you've been doing. And I know just towards the end of it all, you were particularly thrilled that actually jumping on the bandwagon, but wonderfully so, was Stephen Fry, of all people.
Yeah, fantastic. And the quote that he put on his Twitter to his 12+ million followers was, if there's ever a cause to get behind, this is the one. And such a lovely person to do that, and we got lots of support off the back of that.
And look, people, I'm sure watching and listening right now will want to get involved still, because the money still needs to come in. How do they do that?
Well, we're called Head Up Charity. You can Google that. Our website is head-up.org.uk. We're on all the social media sites, and on our website you can find promo videos, brochures, links to everything you can want, and please get in touch and help out if you can.
Yeah, and I'm sure people would want to do that.
Yes.
Paul, it's a joy to see you again. It's a pleasure to call you a friend, and it's really good to see you.
Thank you.
very
Thank you
much
for your
indeed.
support all the way
True
through.
inspiration.
I tell
Brilliant
you,
stuff.
these members of the armed forces and these veterans are real heroes. Actually.
Yeah.
And that's not a word that you use very lightly.
No.
But when the stuff that they go through,
Yeah, it's incredible. It truly is.
can be really tough.
Yeah,
And we need to keep helping them.
yeah. That's an amazing way to finish this programme, isn't it, this Saturday morning. Thank you so much for your company, and thank you for watching and listening at home. We're going to be back with you tomorrow morning. Join us from 6 a.m.
Good morning, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update for the weekend from the Met Office. A mix of sun and showers today. Most of us having a fine bright day tomorrow before more wet and windy weather arrives during Sunday night. Low pressure systems dominating up to the northwest, and these weather fronts basically going to act as bands of showers crossing the country today. Some of us starting the weekend dry and bright with some sunshine across parts of eastern England, but a band of showers pretty heavy out there at the moment across parts of northern England.